Chapter 1. Ning Shu stood beside the bed. One by one, doctors in white robes passed through her body to save the woman on the bed. Ning Shu also looked at the woman on the bed. Her face was pale and there was no hair on her head. She didn't even have eyebrows as she lay quietly on the bed. It was really funny how people looked without eyebrows. Ning Shu never expected to be conflicted about eyebrows at this time. It seemed like death wasn't that scary and painful. Ning Shu didn't feel any pain now. That's right, Ning Shu was dead. She stood by the side and looked at her body, trying to return to it. Even though her body was torn apart by the pain, Ning Shu still wanted to live. This fluttering feeling made Ning Shu's heart feel uncertain and uneasy. At this moment, the door to the ward opened and a couple rushed in. They ran over and hugged Ning Shu's body as they wailed. Their eyes were red. Then, two men came in. They were Ning Shu's two elder brothers. Ning Shu reached out to hug her mother, but in the end, she passed through her mother's body. "Mom, don't be so sad. Sister is free. She has gone to another world." Ning Shu's elder brother helped Ning Shu's mother up. Ning Shu looked at them like a bystander. She was free. She had been hospitalized since she was 15 and had to undergo chemotherapy twice a week. The pain that went deep into her bones had accompanied her for more than 10 years. In the beginning, her family was in despair and felt sorry for her. But as time passed, they came to the hospital less and less. They were even numb to her illness. Ning Shu didn't blame them. She was even glad that she was born into a wealthy family that allowed her to receive treatment. She was satisfied to live on a hospital bed for more than 10 years, but there were too many regrets in life. Ning Shu's soul bloomed with a smile. She was grateful to her family. "Thank you." Ning Shu's soul became lighter and lighter. It even floated uncontrollably. She didn't know where she was going to drift. Suddenly, Ning Shu heard a voice. A cold voice exploded in her soul. Qualified soul, bound to the system space. Immediately, Ning Shu felt an ice-cold thing flowing into her soul. Even if it was her soul, she also felt an ice-cold energy explode in her soul. Under the impact of this energy, Ning Shu beautifully lost consciousness. Before losing consciousness, Ning Shu's last thought was that she couldn't be reincarnated, right? After an unknown amount of time, Ning Shu finally woke up. He felt very tired and his soul was very heavy. The exhaustion of the soul made people feel exhausted and helpless. Ning Shu rubbed his head. This was just a subconscious physical reaction. He didn't expect that when he rubbed his head, he would feel like he was rubbing cotton. Ning Shu was pleasantly surprised and frightened. She didn't understand what was going on. Her soul had become like this. She didn't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. However, if the soul was like this, it wouldn't dissipate easily. Ning Shu calmed down and looked around. She was surrounded by a vast expanse of whiteness. There was nothing. There was no sound. There was no life. It was dead and lonely. There was nothing. It was too quiet. It was so quiet that it was strange. Humans were fearful of the unknown, and Ning Shu was no exception. Even if she was a soul, she still felt her hair stand on end when faced with such a situation. However, she was still alive. Although it was in a different way. Ning Shu couldn't figure it out. She didn't want to think about it. Since she was here, she might as well take things as they came. If the illness gave Ning Shu endless pain and torment, it also gave Ning Shu a tenacious state of mind. She could endure the endless pain. If it wasn't for her tenacity, she would have already given up on this torture and committed suicide. Ning Shu stepped on the thing under her feet. It felt very strange. She bent down and touched it with her hands. She had never seen this kind of thing before. Ning Shu observed her surroundings. Finally, she determined that she was alone. She gave up on looking for her companions. She sat on the ground and meditated with her eyes closed. To be honest, Ning Shu cherished her life more than anyone else. Since she came to this place, she had her reasons. Ning Shu could only wait and see what her fate was. She didn't know if it was an illusion or not. Ning Shu felt very comfortable sitting like this. No, it should be said that her soul was very comfortable. Some warm things flowed into her body. Ning Shu felt like she was floating. The endless waiting was frightening. Ning Shu found a game to pass the time. That was meditation. She absorbed unknown things into her body. Ning Shu didn't know how to absorb these things. She could only rely on her instincts to meditate. Ning Shu opened her eyes. She was pleasantly surprised. She touched her body. She felt that her body had changed a little. Previously, it was soft like cotton. The texture was very sparse. Now, she felt that her body was a little tighter. Although it was just a little, Ning Shu could still feel it. What kind of place was this? It actually had the effect of strengthening the soul. It was too magical. Test passed. Mission initiated. A cold mechanical voice sounded. It was abrupt and strange in this deathly silent space. When Ning Shu heard this voice, she reflexively felt her body turn cold. She seemed to have heard this voice before. It was just before she fainted. Ning Shu was cautious about things she couldn't understand. She didn't ask who the other party was or what they wanted. In her current state, what could other people want? Your current serial number is 23333. Serial number 23333. Do you want to initiate a mission now? Facing this serial number 23333, Ning Shu had an indescribable feeling of being ridiculed. When she heard that she wanted to initiate a mission, although she didn't know what it meant, she immediately replied, "Initiate a mission." When Ning Shu's voice fell, a projection screen appeared in front of her. On it was her information. Serial number, 23333 name, Ning Shu age, 27 experience, 0/10,000, soul value, 60 health value, 50 charm value. Luck value, 20 mental power, 120 skills, none honorary title, none. Looking at these attributes, Ning Shu felt like she was playing an online game. Only, why was her charm a question mark? However, charm was such an insignificant option. Ning Shu didn't care. Instead, she asked other questions. My serial number is 2333. Then, is there someone before me? Player doesn't have the authority to know. The cold voice said. Then what about after the experience value reaches 10,000? Player doesn't have the authority to know. Since I'm a player, are there other players? Player doesn't have the authority to know. Why is my charm value unknown? She should have the authority to know this. The mechanical voice paused for a moment and said, when the host was alive, no man had expressed affection or love for the host. Therefore, the host's charm value is unknown. Ning Shu. Chapter 2. There were many planes in this world, and Ning Shu's mission was to enter the vast and endless planes and fulfill the wishes of the people who entrusted him. These people would offer up certain things and pray for their lives to be reversed. Mission takers were born. When Ning Shu found out that he could enter other people's bodies, he was very happy. After completing the mission, he could experience the life of a healthy person and fulfill the regret of his previous life. However, the thing that claimed to be the system suddenly poured cold water on him. Your mission time is only 5 years, and your HP is only 50. 1 point of HP is 1 year. If you exceed your HP, you will completely disappear. Of course, you can also choose to stay in the mission world and live out your life. After that, there is no after. Ning Shu nodded his head to show that he understood. For the first mission, you have drawn the simplest mission from the system, School World. Do you want to start the mission now? The system's voice was very cold, mechanical and emotionless. Every time he heard the system's voice, Ning Shu felt a chill all over his body. He really didn't like its voice and immediately said, "Start the mission." Ning Shu's voice just fell, and before he could even prepare, his mind went blank. His whole body felt like it was stuffed in a claustrophobic bottle, he couldn't move at all. It was so uncomfortable that he felt like he was going to die. Beat this little bitch to death. She doesn't even look at her own virtue. She actually dares to come in front of the prince. Her skin is really thick. She really thinks she is a big miss. Bitch. When Ning Shu felt something, she heard a buzzing sound in her ears. Many people were cursing and kicking her body. Ning Shu felt that these people wanted to break her bones. What kind of situation was this? Wasn't it the simplest mission? How could she be beaten up by so many people? What happened to the simple mission? Ning Shu opened her eyes. She was surrounded by shining white legs. From time to time, they would stretch out their legs and kick her. Ning Shu could even see these people lifting their legs to reveal their underwear. There was a fishy smell on the floor, and there was also a unique stench of the toilet. Ning Shu immediately understood what happened to her. She was surrounded and beaten up in the toilet. Right now, her mind was empty. She had no time to accept the plot of this world. Faced with such a situation, Ning Shu was a little confused. Suddenly, a hand reached out in front of Ning Shu, grabbed her collar, and pulled her up. Ning Shu stood up uncontrollably, opened her eyes, and looked at the person opposite her. The girl who was tugging at her collar was wearing a short school uniform. She looked at Ning Shu with disdain and disgust. Her fingers were poking at Ning Xian's face, her long nails almost digging into her flesh. Ning Shu's body trembled in pain. However, after suffering from the pain for more than 10 years, Ning Shu endured it. However, this body could not endure pain, so Ning Shu cried out in pain. Seeing the delight in her eyes, Ning Shu felt a chill in his heart. What kind of hatred was this to make a young girl reveal such an expression? This was no longer simple school violence. The girl saw Ning Shu's dazed face. She grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the wall, making the wall bang. Ning Shu was already confused. Now that her head was being slammed against the wall, her mind was even more confused. She even felt that her soul was about to be ejected from this body. Ning Shu was a little panicked. She could not leave this body. Otherwise, how was she going to complete her mission? It did not make sense that her first mission would fail like this. She instinctively felt that if she failed like this, she might disappear, and Ning Shu would no longer exist. With willpower, Ning Shu endured the pain in her body. Perhaps seeing that she did not resist, these girls felt that it was boring, so they let her go. When they left, they even stepped on her body, causing Ning Shu's body to spasm in pain. Suddenly, Ning Shu's heart was filled with uncontrollable hatred and humiliation. The body that Ning Shu was in trembled. She wanted nothing more than to rush over and tear those people into pieces, letting them have a taste of this kind of humiliation and pain. Ning Shu was shocked by the body's reaction. It took her a long time to suppress her emotions. She got up from the ground, walked to the bathroom, and closed the door. Sitting on the toilet, her entire body seemed to have lost its strength. Now, Ning Shu's entire body was in pain. These damned girls were too ruthless. After she calmed down a little, Ning Xian began to accept this world's plot. Ace School was a school for nobles. Those who could attend Ace School were either rich or noble. It was a place where the children of the rich and famous went to gild themselves. There was an absolute hierarchy here, and one's status was completely determined by money and status. However, one day, an ugly duckling appeared in this place full of beautiful swans. Her appearance was like a stain on a painting of flowers, completely ruining the painting. Thus, this ugly duckling felt the malice from the world, and endless difficulties and teases were made. There were always a few extraordinary existences in every school. They were princes from noble families who could shake the world economy with just a stomp of their feet. They were handsome and rich, and all the good things in the world were with them. Ace School also had princes like this, and there were 3 of them. These 3 princes had an endless and messy relationship with the ugly duckling. After saying so much, it actually had nothing to do with Ning Shu. This ugly duckling was not her. This body's name was Lin Jiejia, and she was a second-year high school student. Her family ran a company, and she was completely lucky to be able to enter an aristocratic school like Ace School. As for why she was beaten by so many people, the reason was that she had offended that ugly duckling. This ugly duckling was originally a female cultivator from the cultivation world. Her body was destroyed, and she transmigrated into the body of the ugly duckling. Because she used spiritual energy to treat the illness of a prominent person, she came to Ace School. The female cultivator didn't like this body, but she couldn't leave it. Her power had dropped too much, and if she left this body, her soul would dissipate. As such, she used some of her spiritual energy to change the constitution of this body, and the grey ugly duckling instantly transformed into an enchanting goddess. Facing all kinds of difficulties from the students, Ling Shui felt that ugly duckling, no, it was not suitable to be called ugly duckling anymore. She could solve all the problems with just a thought. Ling Shui didn't want to be in the limelight at school. She was still dressed in her original grey and dirty clothes, but she attracted the attention of the 3 princes. The female cultivator who had lived for so long naturally looked down on these little brats, but it didn't stop her from looking for a sense of superiority from these people. This was no longer the cruel cultivation world, and Ling Shui, who had relaxed, was willing to be chased by others. Chapter 3. Cultivator. Cultivator. Ning Shu opened her mouth wide. Didn't they say it was the simplest world? How could a cultivator appear? Ning Shu obviously knew what a cultivator was. In the eyes of ordinary people, they were immortals. Such a powerful person appeared in the world of the school. Ning Shu didn't have much hope for this mission. She was just an ordinary person. The other party was actually a cheat. She gambled on stones, established a gang, and was very popular. She was like a goddess in school. Outside of school, she was the queen of the dark night. She felt that this world was going to be ruined by Ling Shui. The difference between the 2 sides was too big. Ning Xian suspected that the cold system was messing with her. Was this a simple mission? Then she saw the original owner's wish, beat the high and mighty Ling Shui into the dust. Let Ling Ao, who she liked, not be manipulated by Ling Shui. Also, those who had been helping Ling Shui bully her had to be punished. Ning Shu really felt that something was wrong with the mission. Although she was the mission enforcer, she had no advantage. In front of absolute strength, everything was fleeting. Strength could destroy everything. Ning Shu tried to call out in her heart to see if she could contact the system. The original owner's wish was too difficult. She couldn't go against it. Ning Shu knew what she was capable of. She reckoned that she would be killed before she could even reach Ling Shui. She cherished her life very much. Ning Shu just tried. She didn't expect to really contact the system. There was a sound like an electric current. The system said mechanically, "Why are you in this world?" Ning Shu vomited blood. How did she know that she was in this world? This is an intermediate world. What are you doing in this world? You can't complete the mission in the intermediate world. Oh, it seems like you were sent to the wrong world. My program has some problems. I can't send you back for now. Since you have taken the identity of the mission enforcer, the mission still has to continue. The sound of electricity crackling in her head rang out, and then the system disappeared. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. So, the difficulty of her mission had increased by n levels? Ning Shu suddenly thought of his luck value. Was his luck value too low? That was why such a situation had occurred. It was simply a prelude to her death. Ning Shu, on the other hand, was no longer afraid. Since there was no way out, Ning Shu was filled with hostility. She had already died, so what was there to be afraid of? Now that she could possess such a healthy body, Ning Shu felt that she had profited. Ning Shu wasn't good at other things, but Ning Shu was best at forbearance and patience. As for the violent incident just now, it was because the original owner ran to Ling Ao and Prince Lang and said that Ling Shui was involved with people in the underworld, that Ling Shui was related to the boss of the underworld. He even thought that he was infallible and told Ling Ao to wake up and not be deceived by others. Anyway, he said a lot of bad things about Ling Shui. Actually, the original owner, Lin Jiejia, was telling the truth. Ling Shui was involved with people in the underworld. Ling Shui, who could suggest gangs, was from the underworld. Moreover, Ling Shui's destined one was the boss of a gang. Ling Shui liked someone who was mature, ruthless, and had skills and a godlike face. In Ling Shui's eyes, the princes who were highly sought after in school were just childish brats. She would play with them when she was bored. Yet, these three princes liked this kind of style. Ling Shui knew that the original owner actually ran to Ling Ao and said bad things about her. She directly got someone to teach the original owner a lesson. Ling Shui didn't even have the desire to fight with such a character. That was why the incident in the toilet just now happened. The person who hit her just now was also the original owner, Lin Jiejia's revenge target. Sigh, the mission was heavy and there was still a long way to go. Ning Xian didn't have any other choice now. She opened the toilet door and walked out. It was class time and no one was loitering around the campus. Ning Xian followed the direction in her memory and went to the school doctor's office. The wounds on her body had to be treated. Nothing was more important than a healthy body. Besides, she couldn't do anything now. The school doctor was a man in his 20s. He wore glasses on the bridge of his nose, adding a layer of elegant charm to his handsome face. The white coat on his body actually gave off a tall and straight sexiness. In short, he was a very charming man. Just by looking at the room full of injured female students, if they didn't have a stomachache, they had sprained their ankles. Even when their aunt came, they still asked the school doctor to rub their stomachs. It was obvious how popular this man was among the female students. Ning Shu pursed her lips and lined up. Looking at the girl in front of her who had hearts in her eyes, she couldn't see any discomfort at all. She should be the only one in this room who was injured. Could she go first? Ning Shu supported herself against the wall and waited for a long time. The school doctor glanced at Ning Shu and saw her bruised face. His handsome face showed surprise. Obviously, he had seen many people who pretended to be sick. The sudden appearance of an injured person made him feel surprised and fresh. Pointing at the bump on her forehead, Ning Shu said directly, "Help me treat it." As for the wounds on her body, she wouldn't let him treat them. She thought the school doctor was a woman, but it turned out to be such a handsome man. It was too wasteful to be a school doctor. Sure enough, it was a place for the female lead. Even the school doctor was such a charming man. Taking a cotton swab dipped in disinfectant, the school doctor directly poked Ning Shu's bruised face without any gentleness. Ning Shu gritted her teeth. Even the school doctor who had no grievances with her was so fierce to her. Was the entire Ace University shrouded by Ling Shui's aura? In the end, the school doctor simply bandaged Ning Shu and said, "Okay, how did this happen?" The skin was clearly broken, and it was over. The swelling was so high, and it was so simple to treat it. As a patient who had stayed in the hospital for more than 10 years, the other party's treatment was simply blasphemous and irresponsible. That's it. Ning Shu still said. She pointed at her forehead. It was so swollen that it looked like a unicorn. Such rough treatment made Ning Shu very unhappy. Nothing was going well. The school doctor pushed up his glasses. His eyes reflected light, giving people a sinister and dark feeling. He asked faintly, "Then how do you want to treat it? Wrap up the whole body." His position as the school doctor was just for show. The children who studied in this school didn't need a school doctor. Their families all had their own specialized doctors. Suddenly meeting such a serious student, the school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. Being so self-righteous made it seem like she was being unreasonable. After transmigrating for such a short time, Ning Shu felt that his worldview had been turned upside down. The girls in school could be so fierce, and the school doctor at work could be so arrogant. Weren't you afraid that the school would fire you? Ning Shu didn't know what to say. She really didn't have anything to say to him. She stood up and was about to leave. Her mind was filled with the mission. Even if the mission was difficult, she had to work hard to complete it. Chapter 4. In the face of the school doctor's arrogant and self-confident attitude, Ning Shu was also speechless. Ning Shu left with a bandage on her forehead, which made the school doctor take a few more glances at her. She even watched Ning Shu's back until she could no longer see her. Ning Shu returned to the classroom based on the original owner's memories. To be honest, when she saw the classroom, Ning Shu was very excited. She had been in the hospital since she was 15 years old. Since then, she hadn't been to the classroom. But this enthusiasm was immediately extinguished. Ning Shu stood at the door of the classroom and wanted to enter, but she was blocked by the bespectacled teacher. "Lin Jiejie, you're late for school. You don't have to attend this class. Stand at the door." Teacher Liang said faintly. Her eyes under the glasses revealed a look of disdain. "Don't disturb others in class." Ning Shu felt very uncomfortable in her heart, but she also knew that she couldn't win against the powerful, so she stood obediently at the door. Teacher Liang snorted. She looked like a mean middle-aged woman, a far cry from the image of a human soul engineer. ACE was an aristocratic school. In the school, the teacher's status was lower than the students'. Moreover, the student's status wasn't something the teachers could afford to offend. Now that she was hated by everyone in ACE, a woman with power like Teacher Liang would naturally hit her when she was down. This way, she could curry favor with the three godlike princes in the school. In Lin Jiejie's memories, everyone in the school had teased Ling Shui. Teacher Liang also hit her when she was down and tried her best to make things difficult for Ling Shui. But in the end, Ling Shui made a comeback. Teacher Liang immediately changed her attitude and tried to curry favor with Ling Shui. She was a fence-sitter. Ning Shu stood in the corridor. She heard whistles and laughter coming from the classroom. Some people stood up and looked at her with disdain and mockery. Ning Shu was speechless. What did the original owner do to make these people hate her so much? It was as if she had killed their father. Ning Shu recalled carefully. It didn't seem like she had done anything wrong. She just went crazy and tried to find trouble with Ling Shui. When he came to his senses, he seemed to have angered the crowd. Ning Shu was speechless. In this world, Ling Shui was the absolute main character. The world revolved around the main character. However, people like Ling Shui, who only needed to move a finger and countless people would flock to her like a flock of ducks. They would worship her without reason. This was no longer charm, but horror. What would happen to this world? Ning Shu felt that he was too much of a busybody. He couldn't even touch the edge of the quest and had no clue at all. His thoughts had actually strayed to the level of the entire human race, the entire world. Ning Shu's leg was starting to hurt from standing, so he stood on one leg and switched from one to the other. Finally, when the bell rang, a group of people rushed out of the classroom and surrounded Ning Shu. She was the one who had hit Ning Shu in the toilet. Enrong was the female student who had pushed Ning Shu's head against the wall. She chewed gum in her mouth, raised her chin, and looked at Ning Shu with drooping eyelids. She said in a strange tone, "Yo, you actually dare to come to class. Looks like you don't have a good memory." Ning Shu's body trembled. This body was terrified of this person. He thought of the original plot where this girl called Enrong acted as Ling Xue's fighter and beat up the original owner so badly that she was injured every day. Resentment and fear rose in his heart. If Ling Xue was the person that the original owner hated the most, then the original owner's hatred for this girl called Enrong was no less than Ling Xue's. After all, many things were done by Enrong herself. "Prince Ling is here, Prince Ling is here," the surrounding girls screamed. Both sides of the corridor were filled with girls, leaving a path in the middle. 3 princes with their own glowing rings walked into Ning Shu's classroom. Their hearts were like the moon, and the surroundings were filled with screams. Ning Shu's gaze focused on the person at the front. He was tall and straight, and his face was cold. However, this coldness had a kind of childishness, making him look unruly and arrogant. He was noble and arrogant, and he was also cool and handsome. Ning Shu felt his heart thumping in his chest, and even his face was red. Ning Shu expressed that this was his body's reaction, and it had nothing to do with him. After seeing the 3 princes, Enrong, who was originally arrogant and domineering, immediately became delicate and charming. She no longer had the arrogant aura around her. In an instant, she transformed, as if she was a different person. Looking at the girls around him, their faces were all red. Some were reserved, some were passionate, and some were elegant. In short, all kinds of girls were presented in front of the 3 princes. Ning Shu's heart was filled with resentment and anger. They were all vixens, these vixens. Ning Shu's face was filled with black lines. How much did the original owner like this Ling Ao? She wanted to sacrifice her soul to counterattack this life, but she didn't forget to save Ling Ao from Ling Xue's charm. "Prince Ling, you're here to look for Ling Xue. Ling Xue is in the classroom, I'll help you call her." Enrong said softly and excitedly. She quickly walked into the classroom to call Ling Xue. I forgot to mention that the original owner and Ling Xue were actually classmates. What an ill-fated relationship. Ling Xue already knew about the situation outside. Thinking that she, a cultivator, actually had to go out and meet these mortals, Ling Xue's heart felt uncomfortable. However, she thought that these 3 little radishes could help her solve some small problems. They could let her live comfortably in school. Sometimes, power was just so convenient. Prince Ling only needed to say a word, and if he wanted to make things difficult for someone, it was simply too convenient. Ling Xue also let go of the unhappiness in her heart. However, the prince that all the girls in the school liked actually liked her. Although Ling Xue was a cultivator, she was still a woman. Her vanity was even stronger than the average woman. Ling Xue smiled and walked out of the classroom. She used her hand to stroke her hair and smiled slightly. Immediately, people who saw Ling Xue's smile felt as if there were fragrant petals falling from the sky, intoxicating them. Ning Shu looked at Ling Xue and praised in his heart. She was indeed a peerless beauty. Her facial features were exquisite, beautiful, noble, and proud, but people couldn't help but want to get close to her. Even when Ning Shu saw Ling Xue, he felt a sense of closeness in his heart. He had the urge to get close to her, as if she was the person closest to him, the person he loved the most. Ning Shu was shocked. What was going on? Why was the protagonist's halo so strong? Ning Shu thought carefully and guessed that it was because of the spiritual energy. Ling Xue was a cultivator. She absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Spiritual energy was something that the body needed the most. The body instinctively thirsted for spiritual energy, and then the body developed a sense of closeness to Ling Xue. Ning Shu thought of the original owner. Relying on his love for Leng Ao, he resisted the protagonist's halo and the body's desire for spiritual energy. Ling Shui saw the infatuated eyes of these people. Even the cool and handsome Leng Ao was stunned. She felt very proud in her heart. She didn't waste a lot of spiritual energy to transform this body. In the past, in the cultivation world, it was very difficult for women. There weren't many female cultivators who could climb up with their own abilities. Most of them relied on men and became existences like furnaces. But now, these men were unable to extricate themselves from her charm. Chapter 5. Ling Shui looked around and found that everyone's eyes were fixed on her. However, she saw Ning Shu who had his head lowered. She frowned and felt very uncomfortable. This Lin Jiejia always came to find trouble with her. She just complained and Enrong immediately brought people to find trouble with her. Ning Shu lowered his head and resisted the urge to rush over and shake Leng Ao's body to wake him up. Ning Shu felt that he was too weak. He was always affected by the residual emotions in his body. It took a lot of effort to suppress these emotions. Ning Shu knew that he couldn't be affected by the original owner's emotions. Otherwise, what was the difference between him and the original owner? He had to be calm. At this moment, he felt a sharp gaze on him. Ning Shu raised his head and met Ling Shui's eyes. What kind of gaze was that? Sharp, cold, high and mighty as if looking at an ant. Ning Shu was puzzled. He was hiding at the side and not looking for trouble. Why was she still looking at him? Ning Shu didn't dare to go against Ling Shui now. The difference in strength between the two sides was too big. It was like a natural chasm. He could only keep quiet and plan slowly. He didn't dare to provoke the tiger's whiskers. If he angered the other party, he would be chopped up and thrown into the river to feed the fish. That's right, the female lead was that ruthless. Leng Ao saw that Ling Shui's gaze was on Ning Shu and also looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately felt his body tremble with excitement. Ning Shu was speechless. It was just a glance. What was this body so excited about? Ning Shu wasn't the original owner. He wouldn't be charmed by Leng Ao's face that could instantly kill a girl. In the eyes of Ning Shu who had died once, this girl was just a pink skeleton. Leng Ao looked at Ning Shu with a frown. His eyes were filled with deep disgust. It was obvious that he had remembered who this person was. He did not have a good impression of Lin Jiejia who kept pestering him. He was really disgusted with her. Just a casual word from her and everyone in the school went to find trouble with her. Who did he think he was? He even wanted him to stay away from Ling Shui. Feeling the other party's gaze, why are her eyes so clear? In the past, they were filled with disgust and self-righteous affection. Now, there's nothing in her eyes. She's looking at me like I'm a stranger. Leng Ao sneered. Trying to get his attention by loosening the reins only to grasp them better was really childish. Leng Ao turned his head to look at Ling Shui. His eyes were filled with tenderness, but he said arrogantly, "Hey, woman, this weekend is my birthday. Come back and attend my birthday party." Ling Shui wasn't interested in the birthday party. She was busy taking over the territory. Speaking of territory, Ling Shui gritted her teeth. She had actually met a tough nut to crack. She relied on her own cultivation. Her body had been transformed by spirit qi, and was completely different from a mortal. However, that man was actually not at a disadvantage when fighting with her. This made Ling Shui very depressed, and a desire to conquer arose in her heart. Seeing that Ling Shui didn't speak, Leng Ao's eyes were filled with anxiety. He felt a little hurt, but he raised his chin high. "If you don't come, I won't let you go." How childish. Ling Shui unexpectedly thought of the man who fought with her. He was cold and ruthless. Most importantly, he was very powerful. Moreover, the way he looked at her was very hot with a hint of ambiguity. When Ling Shui thought of his eyes, her heart couldn't help but beat faster. Women like to be conquered by powerful men, especially Ling Shui who came from the cultivation world. Mortals were ants. However, Ling Shui saw the anxiety and hope in Ling Ao's eyes. It felt really good to control other people's emotions. Ling Shui felt that although the spirit qi in this world was thin, it was different from cultivation. Ling Shui felt as if she was standing at the top of the world. This feeling was really great. I'll go back. I'll also prepare a gift. Ling Shui said indifferently. She was calm and didn't look flattered at all. Only then did a smile appear on Ling Ao's face. However, he still raised his chin proudly and said, "At least you know what's good for you." Ning Shu watched from the side and felt that it was enough. Ning Shu didn't feel that Ling Ao's arrogance was cute at all. He only felt that it was very arrogant. The way he acted like he was giving alms really made his hands itch. According to Ning Shu's thoughts, this kind of person who didn't know what was good for him didn't need to care about him. It was obviously a school world, but the female lead was too awesome. In the school, the prince who was like a god looking down on all living things directly became the male supporting character. The two princes beside him became the male lead. Ning Shu even suspected that Ling Ao's existence was completely to set off the male lead's mature charm. Ning Shu just had a thought of ignoring Ling Ao in his heart. This body immediately had a consciousness that resisted her. The body even began to reject her soul. Ning Shu was shocked. He quickly chanted in his heart, "I'm here to save Prince Lang, save Prince Lang, save Prince Lang." After a long time, the residual emotions in his body completely calmed down. Ning Shu looked at the sky silently. If bad luck was transmitted to this world, the mission was basically impossible to complete. Yet, the residual emotions in his body still came to cause trouble. Ning Shu had the urge to cry in the wind. How could he improve his luck? How could he improve his character? Ling Ao walked past Ning Shu and looked at him from the corner of her eyes. She stopped in front of him and looked down at Ning Shu's slightly distorted face. Ning Shu didn't understand. He blinked and looked at Ling Ao. Ling Ao looked at him with eyes that were very clear. The clear eyes reflected his own silhouette. It seemed to be able to calm people in her eyes. Then, Ling Ao realized that something was wrong. She was a love-struck fool. She pestered him like a lunatic, saying that he was deceived by Ling Shui. Ling Shui wasn't someone a scum like her could slander. Don't appear in front of me. I won't like you. Just give up. If you say anything bad about Ling Shui again, I'll make you suffer. Ling Ao's voice was cold. Ning Shu didn't doubt the truth of his words. Therefore, this was the most depressing part of this mission for Ning Shu. He was obviously deeply in love with Ling Shui. Why did he have to ask him to repent? Really, could he stop fooling around? Ning Shu looked at Ling Ao's face. No, it was his chin. The other party was too tall. Ning Shu raised his head and endured the sharp pain in his heart. Ling Ao watched as her face suddenly turned pale and lost its color. There was no sympathy in his heart. Instead, he felt a sense of pleasure. He felt that he had helped Ling Shui vent her anger. Ling Ao left after saying those cold words. He didn't care what kind of harm his words would cause to a girl. Feeling the mocking gazes around him and the mocking laughter, Ning Shu felt like his body was being pricked by needles. What a self-centered person he was. He lived in his own world. Ning Shu really couldn't understand why the original owner liked someone like Ling Ao so much. Deep in his bones. Was it because of his face or his family background? In Ning Shu's opinion, Ling Ao was a person who relied on his halo to do whatever he wanted. How was such a person cute? Chapter 6. Ning Shu's heart was numb from the pain. She really hated this feeling. It was really annoying to be affected by this kind of emotion. Ling Shui smiled faintly. It was probably because Ling Shu's actions had pleased her. She glanced at Ning Shu and walked past her, bringing with her a fragrant scent. Ning Shu sniffed. It smelled really good. What a charming woman. Ning Shu wouldn't deny that Ling Shui was a charming woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have captivated the male lead, so many supporting male leads, and her countless underlings. Ning Shu couldn't sit still under everyone's various gazes. She finally waited until school ended. Just as she walked out of the school gate, she saw a driver waiting at the gate. When he saw Ning Shu, he immediately opened the door and said, "Miss, Master is waiting for you." Ning Shu raised her eyebrows. Looking at the private cars parked at the gate, she finally understood why the aristocratic school was called an aristocratic school. She picked out the master from her memories, which was this body's father. Actually, Lin Jiejia's heart was very inferior. Her family started doing retail sales and her father could be considered rich. However, in the eyes of the real rich families, he was a vulgar nouveau riche. Therefore, Lin Jiejia was lucky to be able to enter Ace Academy. Moreover, in the eyes of these rich and powerful families, she was like a dog. She actually went against the goddess and even had disgusting thoughts towards Ling Ao. These people had completely forgotten that Ling Shui's background wasn't as good as Lin Jiejia's. They only knew that Lin Jiejia was an existence that made people hate her. Lin Jiejia's situation was much worse than Ling Shui's. Not everyone was an ugly duckling that could become a swan. The father of this body sent her to Ace Academy so that she could have a good relationship with these noble families. Ace Academy included the children of political and business families. If she could have a good relationship with any one of them, it would be helpful for her business. However, Lin Jiejia became the public enemy of the entire school. Sigh, so complicated. Ning Shu sighed. Ning Shu had just stepped into the living room when a slap landed on her face. The slap was very strong, and it was obvious that he did not hold back at all. Fuck, that's fucking enough. How many times do I have to be beaten in a day? Ning Shu's heart was about to explode. Are the people in this world all crazy? They have mouths but don't know how to speak. What's with that look? Seeing his daughter looking at him gloomily, Mr. Lin is stunned for a moment. Then he gets even angrier. He points at Ning Shu and shouts, "We gave you food and a place to live. We let you live a life that other people can't enjoy in their lifetime. We let you go to the school to make friends, but you offended the whole school. Do you know the status of the people who study in this school? Is your head filled with shit? Why don't you take a look at yourself? Do you think you're worthy of Ling Ao? He told you not to show up in front of him because your behavior has affected the company. Lin Jiejia, have you had enough? I didn't ask you to go to Ace to make trouble for me. You're a money loser. You can't do anything well." Ning Shu doesn't have a chance to say a word. She just hears Mr. Lin talking alone. Ning Shu moves her head. Her brain is buzzing all the time. She must have a concussion. What a scumbag of a father. Ning Shu has some sympathy for the original owner. Her life is already so miserable, but she still doesn't forget to save Prince Lang. Can she leave this world? These people are too strange. Mr. Lin talks for a while. He is thirsty and picks up the teacup to drink. Seeing Ning Shu's head drooping, he doesn't know if she is listening to him. In addition, the company is not doing well recently. It seems that the company is about to go bankrupt because of this unlucky daughter. The company is inspected every day. Sometimes it's about taxes, and sometimes it's about procedures. Anyway, there are all kinds of reasons, which drive Mr. Lin crazy. He picks up the teacup and throws it at Ning Shu. Just now, he was slapped inexplicably. Ning Shu has been watching him all the time, so she dodges immediately. The teacup immediately explodes on the ground and the pieces fly everywhere. Mr. Lin points at Ning Shu and covers his heart with his hand, as if he is going to have a heart attack. Finally, there is a helpless look on his face, as if he is in extreme pain and helplessness. Ning Shu, what's the situation now? Jia, leave the Lin family. This is just a temporary measure. After a while, when all these things are over, I will take you home. Jia, I love you, but I really have no other way. Jia, don't blame me. Ning Shu stutters, Dad. Dad, what do you mean? Ning Shu has a bad feeling in her heart. She hopes that it is not what she thinks. Her luck can't be that bad, right? Is 20 luck too bad? From now on, you are no longer the daughter of the Lin family. Mr. Lin looks at Ning Shu with a painful expression, don't worry, I will take you home. If it wasn't for the slap just now, Ning Shu almost believes this man. Is he going to kick her out of the house and cut off all ties with her? Ning Shu feels that she has made things complicated. She is here to counterattack for the original owner, but now she is kicked out of the house. Is she too unlucky? Ning Shu says without hesitation, Dad, I believe you. It is better to believe in pigs than to believe in you. Mr. Lin breathes a sigh of relief. Seeing that Ning Shu didn't yell or make a scene, he thinks that she is a well-behaved daughter. It's just that she is a little stupid. Which student in Ace Academy is not noble? Every student is a hidden master. How dare she harass Lang Ao? Who is Lang Ao? It is not wrong to be ambitious, but it will fall to your death if you aim too high. Mr. Lin is also ambitious, but he wants to do it step by step. But now because of his daughter, his company is struggling. If this goes on, it will really go bankrupt. Ning Shu goes to Lin Jiajia's room to pack her luggage. She packed all the clothes in the original owner's wardrobe. She didn't leave out any clothes for the 4 seasons. Ning Shu doesn't believe a single word from Mr. Lin, this old fox. As for bringing her home, Ning Shu doesn't care. Ning Shu, who has been in the hospital for so many years, knows too well. She has seen too many people who fight for their own interests. People spend their lives in the hospital. Even though Ning Shu hasn't stepped into society, she has seen the world in the hospital. The Lin family gave up her daughter for their own interests. Ning Shu feels sad for the original owner. Her forehead is wrapped with gauze. Mr. Lin keeps saying that he loves you, but he can't even see the obvious scars on her face. He even adds injuries on top of injuries. He chases her out of the house without asking for any reason. Ning Shu puts away all the cosmetics and jewelry boxes on the dressing table. Designer bags. Maybe she can exchange them for some money when she is in trouble. Chapter 7. Ning Shu packed up 2 big suitcases. He opened the door and saw a woman holding the hand of a 7 or 8-year-old boy. Ning Shu pulled out her memories. This was the original owner's mother and younger brother. This younger brother was almost 10 years younger than the original owner and was the apple of everyone's eye. Even the original owner, Lin Jiajia, was obedient to this younger brother and doted on him. This was because her parents often told her that the 2 siblings must love each other, and even if they got married in the future, they would have to rely on their parents' family. Out of selfishness and blood relationship, Lin Jiajia was really good to her brother. However, Ning Shu was a stranger. From a bystander's point of view, this family treated this little radish head really well. As for the host, it could only be said that all girls were losers. They only treated her as someone who could be used and squeezed out of her value. When she was about to be kicked out of the house, the original owner hid in her room and didn't say a word. She didn't even try to persuade her to stay. Lin Jiajia's mother took out a thick envelope and said, "This is the money I prepared for you. You should take care of yourself in the future. This money should be enough for you to use for a while." Ning Shu was silent. He took the envelope and watched the mother and son go into the room. Ning Shu felt so fucked up. They didn't even cry. Was the original owner not a member of the Lin family at all? Was he not the biological daughter of this couple? Ding! Triggered the hidden plot. The mystery of the original owner's birth. Plot, find mother's little tadpole plot. Do you accept? A cold mechanical voice suddenly sounded in Ning Shu's head. She heard that she had to help find the original owner's biological parents. The task was already very difficult, but what the hell was this? Do you accept the mission to search for the mystery of your background? No. Ning Shu refused without hesitation. She was already in a mess, and she still had to look for her biological parents. She only had 5 years to complete the quest. The longer she stayed in this world, the more her HP would be depleted. When that time came, she would really disappear. It was not easy to find her parents in the sea of people. Are you sure you want to accept the mission? Yes. Find mother's little tadpole plot activated. What? Ning Shu held her head and screamed. When did she agree to start the mission? She didn't accept the mission at all. The system was too despicable. How could it kidnap people like this? How could it force people to buy and sell? As a pitiful child with only 20 luck, even the rigid system became sinister and bullied her. With a long face, Ning Shu stuffed the envelope into the box and carried the 2 large boxes downstairs. Downstairs, Mr. Lin looks at Ning Shu's sad and helpless face. He pretends to be kind and says, "This is just a temporary measure. I will take you back." Ning Shu looked at his fake performance and didn't feel anything in her heart. The original owner wasn't his daughter, but he raised the original owner and let her live a rich life. He had the intention to make use of her, so there was no need to talk about hatred. Just like this body, when she found out that she wasn't his biological daughter, she heaved a sigh of relief. There was value in being used. Living a life of wealth and squandering money like water, people would always sacrifice something if they couldn't enjoy something in their lifetime. This body was a little resentful, but there was no hatred. Ning Shu was relieved. Fortunately, there was no weird quest to revenge on Mr. and Mrs. Lin. Too lazy to argue with Mr. Lin, Ning Shu went out with the 2 large boxes, stopped a taxi, and temporarily found a hotel to stay for the night. The next day, Ning Shu rented a small suite near the school. The suite was small enough for her to live alone. Then she moved all the things into the suite and carefully cleaned every corner of the room. When the room was lit up, Ning Shu leaned against the wall in satisfaction. She was sweating all over. The feeling of sweating was too comfortable. In her previous life, her illness had damaged her body to the point that she couldn't walk. She could only lie in bed every day. She was worse than a disabled person. Ning Shu jumped up and down. What a healthy body. After settling down, Ning Shu went to school. Because all the targets of the task were in Ace College, how could she complete the task without going to school? But when Ning Shu just walked into the school, she found that the eyes of the students were very strange. They pointed at her, and when she came close, these students scattered as if she had the plague virus. Some even covered their noses. Ning Shu raised her hand and smelled it. It seemed that there was no stench on her body. When Ning Shu walked into the classroom immediately roared with laughter, which made Ning Shu confused. Enron walked in front of Ning Shu and looked down at her with disdain. Ning Shu, you still dare to come to class. Your face is made of iron. As Enron said this, she actually reached out to pull Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu dodged and said coldly, "Why are you touching me?" She had no manners at all. She was a student of Ace College. Etiquette was a compulsory course for Ace College students. Enron did not expect this bitch, who could be beaten and scolded by her, to dare to dodge. The muscles on her face trembled and she threw the newspaper at Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu dodged and picked up the newspaper on the ground. The newspaper was full of news that Mr. Lin had cut ties with his daughter. Lin Jijia was no longer the daughter of the Lin family and had nothing to do with the Lin family. In short, it was as absolute as it could be. You are now an orphan girl. How dare you come to school? Ace College is not a welfare home. And Rome's expression was mocking. Everyone in the classroom roared with laughter. Ning Shu listened to the harsh laughter and felt that her worldview was distorted. She had read in books that the feelings in junior high school were the most ignorant, and the feelings in senior high school were the purest, without any interests involved. It was different from the feelings in college, which was utilitarian and calculative. However, what she saw now was a group of high school students using the most vicious words and ferocious faces to treat a weakling. Ning Shu forgot that Ace College was a small society, even crueler than society. The students here were all people standing at the top of the pyramid. They were people that ordinary people could not reach. Ning Shu's biggest mistake was that she was a weakling who was abandoned by her family. She was not qualified to stay with them. Ning Shu folded the newspaper and put it in her bag. Then, ignoring the contempt of others, she sat down in her seat. Seeing that Ning Shu did not react at all, Rong felt that her fist had hit cotton. She was extremely depressed. She looked at Ning Shu viciously and signaled her to wait. It was an ill-fated relationship. The seat of the original owner was actually behind Ling Shui. However, Ning Shu looked at her seat. There were mottled marks on the desk. It was scratched beyond recognition with a knife and one of the table legs was missing. These naughty children. Chapter 8. Ning Shu held onto the table with one hand, not letting it fall. His eyes emitted mosquito coils as he watched the blonde-haired, blue-eyed teacher teach on the podium. Ning Shu couldn't understand a single word the whole time in English. As someone who had been in the hospital since junior high, he only knew a few simple words. Ning Shu looked around, as if she didn't understand what they were saying. She looked at the back of the female lead, Ling Shui. Just her back was so beautiful and peerless. The sharp senses of a cultivator made Ling Shui feel that someone was looking at her. Ling Shui turned around and met with Ning Shu's eyes. Ning Shu's heart skipped a beat. Since he was already caught, he might as well be magnanimous. Ling Shui was very annoyed by Ning Shu's direct gaze. This feeling was like being provoked by an ant. In the cultivation world, cultivators could even fight just because of a glance. Ling Shui felt that Ning Shu had offended her dignity. Ling Shui's eyes were cold. She thought about how this woman called Lin Jijia went around talking bad about her. She even overestimated herself and told Ling Ao to stay away from her. Ling Shui sneered. She had always been the one throwing things away. No one had ever thrown them away. After coming to this world, Ling Shui's attitude became more and more arrogant. Even if she was sitting obediently in class now, she still had an unyielding aura. This feeling might be self-confidence and high spirits in the eyes of others. This was why Ling Shui had the ability to squeeze out all the ladies from prestigious families in the academy and become an unshakable goddess. Ning Shu was angered by the other party's look of looking at an ant. He lowered his head to avoid the other party's murderous gaze. He couldn't directly confront Ling Shui right now. Ning Shu thought of the mission. Since he wanted to beat the high and mighty Ling Shui into the dust, then wouldn't he first have to change the impression of Ling Shui in the hearts of all the students in Ace Academy? What if she was a goddess that everyone sought after, just like how she had now become the person that everyone despised and even hated? It was easier said than done. Ning Shu had no clue at all. According to the development of the plot, the female lead had already hooked up with the male lead. They were in the stage of love and hate. After a while, they would appreciate each other. At that time, Ling Shui's power would be even greater, and the mission would be even harder to complete. Ning Shu rubbed his head. This mission was like hitting a rock with an egg. No matter how he looked at it, it was impossible for her to complete it. If she could also cultivate, damn it, he would directly go up and fight with her. He would directly beat her to the ground. There was nothing more devastating than defeating the opponent's strongest point, the one they relied on the most. Ling Xue's reliance was the cultivation that no one in this world knew. It was the cultivation that allowed one to go to heaven and earth, the cultivation that allowed one to go to heaven and earth. Cultivation. Oh right, could she ask the system for something that could cultivate? The spiritual energy in this world was thin. Ning Shu guessed that Ning Shu's strength wasn't actually very strong. Perhaps he could still put up a fight. System, can I ask for a cultivation secret book? Ning Shu called out to the system in his mind. After a while, the sound of electricity crackling in her head made her head go numb. You can use points to exchange for it. The host currently doesn't have any points and cannot exchange for a secret book. A basin of ice water was poured over Ning Shu's head. As expected, there was nothing in this world that could be obtained without sewing. But Ning Shu still didn't give up. She said, because of your mistake, I came to this world. The mission is very difficult. Shouldn't you show some appreciation? The system's voice was mechanical and flat. The host came to this world because the system's program was in disorder, not because of me. Ning Shu wanted to vomit blood. The system was just a rigid system. She was actually bargaining with it. She was drunk. Ning Shu was a little depressed that one of her paths had been denied. Ling Xue, who was sitting in front, suddenly panicked the moment the system appeared. It was as if something was staring at her. It was an incomparably dangerous feeling. Ling Xue's heart was flustered. How could there be such a dangerous thing in this world? It was impossible. Ling Xue's body trembled and sweat poured out of her body. The spiritual sense of a cultivator was very sharp. Moreover, Ling Xue had the luck of this world. She could turn misfortune into blessings. Ever since Ling Xue came to this world, everything had always been smooth. She had never met a creepy existence. What exactly was that thing? What the hell was that? Ling Xue clenched her teeth and looked around. There was no abnormality at all. It was as if she was hallucinating. But this feeling was real. Ling Xue felt like she was going to go crazy again. When the system left, Ning Shu and Ling Xue both slumped on the table. Ning Shu slumped because she was shocked, while Ling Xue slumped because she was too nervous. Now that she had come into contact with danger, her whole body relaxed and her face was pale. There was a shadow in Ling Xue's heart. Her limbs were limp and she couldn't muster up any strength. To put it bluntly, she was so scared that her legs went soft. Of course, Ning Shu didn't know that she had only asked the system to reply to her. She had actually scared Ling Xue to this extent. Ning Shu was only worried about her mission in her heart. The bell rang. When the blonde-haired blue-eyed teacher left the classroom, An Rong immediately stood up and ran in front of Ning Shu. She kicked Ning Shu's table. However, the table coincidentally hit Ling Xue who was in front of her. It landed solidly on Ling Xue's back. Ning Shu's eyes widened. This completely had nothing to do with her. An Rong's face turned pale. Ling Xue suddenly stood up and slammed her hand on her own table. Instantly, the table was destroyed. Ling Xue coldly shouted, "You're courting death." She emitted a strong pressure, causing An Rong to sit on the ground. Fortunately, Ning Shu was quick-witted. She immediately crawled on the ground and the pressure didn't cause any harm to her. Under the pressure of Ling Xue's murderous aura, An Rong's body trembled. Blood flowed out of her nose and her teeth chattered. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted. An Rong's fainting caused a commotion in the classroom. Only then did Ling Xue react. She quickly retracted her pressure. She was extremely annoyed. Just now, she felt an incomparable sense of danger in her heart. She was actually hit in the back when she wasn't paying attention. Her anger was rising. Cultivators were particular about following their hearts. It wasn't her style to keep her anger bottled up in her heart. After coming to this world, there wasn't anything that could make her angry. Ling Shui had always been high and mighty, looking down on these mortals. There was nothing to be angry about. However, the feeling just now made her feel that it was difficult to resist. Seeing the eyes in the classroom looking at her with fear and strangeness, Ling Shui's heart became even more annoyed. She pursed her lips and looked even more arrogant and cold. She didn't even intend to explain or show concern for the unconscious and wrong. Ling Shui glanced at Ning Shu, who was lying on the ground without a care for her image. Her eyes flashed with killing intent. Ning Shu was puzzled. It wasn't her who kicked the table. Why was she looking at her with such a malicious gaze? The female lead was really willful. She could do whatever she wanted. Chapter 9. Seeing and roam like this, a carefree feeling rose in Ning Shu's heart. It was the original owner's feeling, and it was also Ning Shu's feeling. When she first transmigrated to this world, she was beaten up by Enrong. The pain was all borne by her. Being grabbed by the hair and slammed against the wall was a painful and insulting way. Ling Shui's desk was broken, so Ling Ao immediately got someone to send a brand new desk over. Ning Shu silently stood up his three-legged desk and saw Ling Ao asking about Ling Shui's well-being. Ning Shu's mouth twitched when he saw Ling Ao's concerned and arrogant look. Ling Shui's mood had already calmed down, and she returned to her usual noble and cold appearance. Facing Ling Ao's relationship, she smiled and said, "It's fine now." A smile appeared on Ling Ao's face. From the corner of his eyes, he saw Ning Shu lifting the table with his hands, looking indescribably wretched. Ling Ao said in disgust, "Did you hurt Ling Shui?" Ning Shu blinked and didn't say anything. Why was she involved again? "I'm talking to you." Ling Ao raised his leg and kicked Ning Shu's table over. Of course, the table didn't hit Ling Shui this time. Ning Shu looked at his desk and fell to the ground with a creak. The table was so innocent. Why were they venting their anger on the table? Ning Shu felt that these people were crazy. They all lived in their own world and did whatever they wanted. Everyone in the classroom was aware of what had just happened. Ling Ao blamed Ning Shu for the incident. No one stood up for Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt a chill and loneliness in his heart. How did the original Ning Shu survive? How did he get ignored and trampled on by others? Then he thought of the original Ning Shu's ending. The female lead was really impatient with Lin Jiejia, this clown, so the male lead ordered his subordinate to get rid of this bouncing and ungrateful woman. The male lead subordinate was also a pervert. He directly tied the body of the original host like a dumpling in a game and threw an axe from a distance to see where it would hit. In the end, it hit the shoulder and almost hit the neck. The axe was deeply embedded in the collarbone and could not be pulled out. Then, he was kicked into the sea and fed to the fishes. His death was truly tragic. Ning Shu looked at Ling Ao. He was high and mighty, just like a god. Ning Shu really wanted to punch him in the face. What kind of behavior was this? Ning Shu couldn't let go of this plaything even after death. He really didn't know what was so charming about this person. Ning Shu, who had stayed in the hospital for a long time and had broken away from the aesthetics of a normal person, couldn't tell. Ling Shui reached out and pulled Ling Ao's arm, saying, "It has nothing to do with this student." Ling Ao looked at the slender fingers on his arm. Each of them seemed to be polished from the best white jade. They were beautiful with a faint halo, so beautiful that it was intoxicating. When the beautiful woman put her hand on his arm, Ling Ao's heart swayed. Ling Ao's heart was bubbling with happiness, but on the surface, he raised his chin elegantly. Ning Shu said, "I'll let you go for Ling Shui's sake. Remember, take a detour when you see Ling Shui in the future." Don't hang around in front of Ling Shui, or I won't let you go. Ning Shu's heart was filled with curses. This matter had nothing to do with her. Now, this tolerant and magnanimous look really disgusted Ning Shu. She was really shot while lying in the trench. These people must be sick in the head, sick, right? If you're sick, go to the hospital. Don't give up treatment. However, what surprised Ning Shu was that Ling Shui actually spoke up for her. However, Ning Shu didn't feel relaxed at all. She didn't forget the murderous look Ling Shui gave her before. By the way, isn't your birthday coming soon? Ling Shui looked at Ning Shu and said, we're all classmates. You should invite Lin Jiejie too. Leng Ao originally wanted to say that such a person didn't deserve to attend his birthday party. However, since Ling Shui had spoken, he naturally had to give Ling Shui face. Why don't you come to my birthday party? Leng Ao said, in the future, restrain your vicious thoughts. Not everyone is as kind as Ling Shui and forgives your mistakes generously. Ning Shu, everyone in the world can be said to be kind, but Ling Shui really can't be called kind. Can a person who has no legal or moral bottom line be called kind? After circling around, the plot still returned to the original. In the plot, it was Leng Ao who invited the original owner. To be invited by Prince Leng personally made the original owner, Lin Jiejie, crazy with joy. However, there were more and more girls targeting her. The original owner endured all these silently. She stayed up all night and personally knitted a scarf for Leng Ao. It was an ordinary scarf. She thought that something she made with her own hands had a different meaning. In the end, of course, she received a lot of ridicule. Leng Ao even put the scarf around the golden retriever's neck in front of the original owner and said, even a dog would despise such a thing if you gave it to my dog. The original owner couldn't figure it out. He was the one who personally invited her to the birthday party. Why did he treat her like this? After that, wherever Lin Jiejie went in school, there would be ridicule. Now it seemed that it was probably because of Ling Shui that the original owner could attend the birthday party. These things were all instructed by Ling Shui behind the scenes. Every time Leng Ao saw Ning Shu's silly look, she felt annoyed. Some time ago, he followed her every day like a pervert. Now he didn't follow her anymore, but every time he looked at her with disdain. Disdain. What right did this woman have to disdain him? She was just an abandoned girl. You don't have to bring a gift. Just come to my birthday party. Leng Ao said disdainfully, you can't afford anything too expensive. Ning Shu wouldn't buy a gift. She wanted to save every cent now. Why would she buy a gift for him? She was still considering whether to go to his birthday party. So, why did she have to save this damn prince? This mission was really frustrating. Who cares about him? Ning Shu couldn't pull her out of the female lead's halo and become a normal person. After this farce, she had inexplicably become a joke. Ning Shu was really annoyed. She didn't do anything and just stood there. Damn it, both the female lead and the supporting male lead had to mock her. Leng Ao said to Ling Shui proudly, come to me if you need anything. I'll protect you. From now on, you're my woman. When Leng Ao said this, her ears were a little red, but her eyes were filled with anticipation. This sentence was equivalent to a confession. I'll look for you if I need anything. Ling Shui's attitude was ambiguous. It seemed like she agreed, but also seemed like she didn't. However, a smile appeared on Leng Ao's face. She curled her lips and pretended to not care. Her face was extremely distorted. Looking at Ling Shui's attitude, it was no wonder that the original owner wanted to save this stupid prince. He didn't agree to anything at all. This bastard looked like he had won the heart of a beauty. Chapter 10. Although everyone despised her and thought that people like Ning Shu didn't deserve to stay in A school, Ning Shu stubbornly endured everyone's disdainful gazes and shamelessly stayed in A school. As long as the school didn't issue a document asking her to leave, Ning Shu was firmly rooted in Ace School. After leaving Ace School, how was she going to save that stupid prince? Also, the female lead was now a student of Ace School. After all, she still had some scruples in school. Once out of school, the female lead resumed her unscrupulous cultivation. She was so cool that people couldn't hold back. She wasn't called the Dark Knight Queen for nothing. Ning Shu's head hurt. She didn't know how to proceed with the mission. It was so difficult at the beginning. Ning Shu's self-confidence had been shattered. Ning Shu thought of Ling Xue's eyes. After thinking about it, she signed herself up for a taekwondo class, hoping to strengthen her body. Although it didn't have any use, it was always good to be more agile when running for her life. It was really sad. She felt like a mouse trapped in a corner by Ling Xue, struggling in all kinds of death throes. Ning Shu guessed that Ling Xue probably played her and the original owner like mice in the palm of her hand, and at the same time gave her a good reputation. As a result, the original owner's body was like being splashed with buckets of feces. It was simply unbearable. The taekwondo class wasn't as simple as Ning Shu thought. Previously, when she saw the cool taekwondo on TV, Ning Shu had a hard time practicing it. When she was doing splits, the coach even pressed a brick on her head. It was very painful. Fortunately, the original owner had a foundation in dancing and her body was still flexible. Every day after school, Ning Shu went to the taekwondo dojo and tried to find time to practice taekwondo. Dragging her tired body to class every day, Ning Shu couldn't understand what the teacher was talking about. Ace School was different from ordinary schools. Ace School's classes were economics, etiquette, and interpersonal relationships. The students they taught were definitely the elites of society. Of course, these students came from prominent families, so it was only natural for them to become people at the top of the social pyramid. Since she couldn't understand, Ning Shu gave up. She was thinking more about taekwondo. These courses were good for her. She should learn, but now that her life was not in her own hands, Ning Shu also gave up these trivial things. Ling Xue could clearly feel that Lin Jiejia, who was sitting behind her, was different. She couldn't tell what was different about her. Ling Xue turned around and looked at Ning Shu with narrowed eyes. She said, "Let's go to Ling Ao's birthday party together." What? Ning Shu looked at Ling Xue in surprise. He really couldn't figure out what the female lead wanted to do. She actually wanted to go to a party with him. This was something that didn't happen in the plot. How could a high and mighty person like Ling Xue be together with an ant like Lin Jiejia? Ning Shu had a bad feeling in his heart. Could it be that the female lead had her eyes on him? Ling Xue did have her eyes on Ning Shu. With the sharp senses of a cultivator, the previous Lin Jiejia was full of malice towards her. For weak people, she could tease them when she was bored in school. However, Ling Xue felt that this ant had become more profound. Her jealousy and hatred towards her was not so obvious. This made Ling Xue feel a little unhappy. She even guessed that she was not the original person. Since she could be reborn, then other cultivators could also transmigrate to this world and take over. Ling Xue had already tasted the sweetness of being one of a kind. She definitely wouldn't allow another cultivator to appear in this world to steal her limelight and threaten her. However, she didn't sense the existence of spiritual energy from the other party's body. She didn't seem like a cultivator. Ling Xue decided to test this Lin Jiejia. Ning Shu saw that Ling Xue's eyes were flickering. One moment, she would explode with a strong murderous aura. The next moment, she would be incomparably cold. She kept changing. He just didn't know what Ling Xue was thinking. Ning Shu shrunk his neck and said, "I can't afford a birthday present. I don't want to go to a birthday party." Ning Shu was speaking the truth. For a person like Ling Ao, who was the focus of attention, the value of a birthday present might be more than what others could earn in their entire life. A trace of contempt flashed across Ling Xue's eyes. She said, "Didn't Ling Ao say that he doesn't need you to buy a present?" This thought quickly flashed across Ning Xu's mind. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. The high and mighty female lead actually wanted to go with him. It felt too strange. Under Ling Xue's strong pressure, Ning Xu realized that he didn't have a choice. Just as he was about to agree, he suddenly said, "Why should I go with you? If I want to go, I'll go by myself." His tone was filled with disgust. This was Ning Xu imitating the original owner's attitude towards Ling Xue. She wanted to agree just now, but according to the original owner's disgust towards Ling Xue, it was impossible for her to go with Ling Xue. Then Ling Xue was testing him and suspecting him. Ning Xu's heart turned cold. Cultivators were so heaven-defying that they could even detect the change in the soul. The female lead's golden finger was too thick. Ning Xu expressed that he was under a lot of pressure. Ling Xue looked at Ning Xu's disgusted expression. She squinted her eyes and scanned Ning Xu's face. Under her gaze, Ning Xu felt like his skin was being pricked by needles. He couldn't control himself and started to twist. Ning Xu rolled his eyes at Ling Xue and shouted, "What are you looking at?" Before Ling Xue could say anything, her deskmate said, "Lin Jiejia, Ling Xue is kind enough to let you go to Prince Leng's birthday party. If it wasn't for Ling Xue, you wouldn't be able to go at all. You don't know what's good for you." Ning Xu looked at the girl who stood up for Ling Xue and said directly, "It's none of your business. I'm talking to Ling Xue. Why are you interrupting? What benefits did Ling Xue give you for you to lick her toes like this? She didn't even say anything, so why are you yelling?" It felt so good. Since these people didn't like him, he might as well shed all pretense of cordiality. It felt better to be fearless. Hearing Ning Xu's vulgar words, the girl was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She shouted, "You bitch! You're the bitch! You're the bitch! You're the bitch!" Bitch, Ling Xue's deskmate had never seen someone curse like this. For people in their class, even if they hated someone to death, they would still put up with it and stab them in the back. Ning Xu had seen a lot of medical disputes in his previous life. This kind of unreasonable way was the most difficult to deal with. When a scholar met a soldier, there was no way to reason with him. As expected, the girl was so angry that she wanted to tear Ning Xu's mouth apart. Ling Xue stopped her deskmate who was about to explode. She glanced at Ning Xu coldly and said, "That's enough." Ning Xu's heart skipped a beat when he saw the girl's murderous gaze. He pouted as if he was unwilling to give up and glared at Ling Xue's deskmate. "Why bother arguing with a random person? You're degrading yourself," Ling Xue said to her deskmate. The girl glanced at Ning Xu arrogantly, as if Ning Xu was a lowly thing. Ning Xu's mouth twitched. He had blocked the girl for Ling Xue and helped her to achieve her noble and elegant image. He didn't know what she was so proud of. This IQ. Would the female lead not care about her image and curse at others? It seemed that she had also helped the female lead's image. But so what? It felt good to curse people. Chapter 11. Ning Xu's quarrel attracted the attention of the other people in the classroom. Everyone looked at Ning Xu as if they were looking at a lunatic. In their eyes, Ning Xu was now a rootless duckweed. An orphan dared to be so arrogant. She should be cowering in a corner like a mouse, living in a corner and running away in panic when she saw people. Now, she was actually baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. Ning Xu didn't care what other people were thinking. Even if she showed weakness and lived in fear, it would only make others bully her more. Ning Xu didn't have any burdens now. She only wanted to complete the mission. Ning Xu turned on the tap. Just as she was about to wash her hands, someone grabbed her head from behind and dragged her back to the toilet. "Fuck, this little bitch is very arrogant." And, she actually heard and roam like that. Yes, avenge and roam. Ning Shu looked at these people. Here they are again, using the same trick and dragging her into the toilet. Did they really think she was easy to bully? These people were not polite to Ning Shu at all. They grabbed her hair and slapped her face. Needless to say, they looked very fierce. Ning Shu grabbed that person's hand. The girl revealed a shocked expression and said angrily, "She actually dares to fight back. Sisters, beat this bitch to death." So many people hitting a real man like her. Ning Shu's heart was also ignited with anger. She wanted to see how the taekwondo she practiced during this period of time was. Ning Shu raised her foot and fiercely stomped on the foot of the person grabbing her hair. The person immediately cried out in pain and let go of Ning Shu's hair. She squatted down and covered her foot. Bitch, bitch. These people were simply unable to restrain their anger. In their eyes, if they hit her, this bitch should obediently let them hit her. This bitch actually dared to resist. Without saying a word, Ning Shu went up and slapped the person who scolded the most fiercely. He used all of his strength, and the girl's face immediately swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. The girl was dumbfounded and her entire body froze. The surrounding people also looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. Ning Shu took advantage of the fact that these people were still in a daze to quickly kick and hit these people. Suddenly, there were screams and curses in the toilet. "Beat this little bitch to death, it hurts." These girls reacted and swarmed over to Ning Shu, hitting and pulling him. 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. Ning Shu's face was scratched, but these girls didn't have it easy either. Ning Shu was either pulling their hair or tearing off their skirts. The girls who had their skirts ripped off screamed and lifted up their skirts. They didn't have time to hit Ning Shu. Ning Shu hit and pulled at these people. Her fingers were full of hair that had been pulled out, and a lot of her hair had been pulled out as well. Ning Shu was in so much pain that he wanted to die. He leaned against the wall and panted, temporarily forming a confrontation. These girls were probably frightened by Ning Shu's fierceness. These girls confronted Ning Shu. Some of them rubbed their breasts, and some of them had their hair pulled off by Ning Shu. Their faces were full of palm prints. Ning Shu stared at these people. Those who met Ning Shu's eyes couldn't help but look away. They didn't dare to confront Ning Shu. Ning Shu spat and felt a burning sensation on his face. Someone had scratched his skin. Ning Shu looked at them and limped out of the toilet. The people in the toilet could only watch as Ning Shu walked out. They didn't dare to follow him. Ning Shu gritted his teeth. His face was in so much pain. His head was also numb from the pain. When he touched it, there were actually beads of blood. Women always pulled their hair when they fought. He really envied Ling Shui. She was so elegant and charming when she fought. She didn't even need to get close to her opponent to deal with them. Just like before, she directly used her spiritual energy to make Enrong unconscious. Fortunately, she had the foresight to train her body and learn taekwondo. Otherwise, she would have been beaten to the ground today. Although he was injured, he also caused these people who usually bullied the original owner to be injured. Their faces were swollen like a pig's head. Ning Shu limped to the school doctor's office. He had to deal with his face. If his face was disfigured, and the original owner returned to his body, he would see a disfigured face full of scars. He would probably collapse. The school doctor's office was still full of people. Moreover, the patients were all female students. They all suffered from the same disease, man-crazy disease. Everyone looked at Ning Shu's miserable appearance and showed an expression of admiration. In order to be treated by the handsome school doctor, he was willing to go all out. What kind of spirit was this? Ning Shu, when it was Ning Shu's turn, Ning Shu sat on the chair and said, "Deal with my face." The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. He picked up a cotton swab and dipped it in disinfectant. He asked, "What's wrong this time? Your head is still swollen. Why are you injured again? I know I'm popular, but there's no need to ruin yourself like this." "Oh, your face is ruined." The school doctor poked Ning Shu's face with the cotton swab. "How ruthless can you be to hurt your face like this?" The wound was wiped with disinfectant. It was so painful that Ning Shu's face was distorted. There was also a narcissistic school doctor beside him who kept talking. "Shut up. You're so annoying. I was beaten by others. I didn't scratch myself." Ning Shu shouted. He really had enough. The school doctor adjusted his glasses. His eyes reflected a ray of light. He didn't say anything and used more strength. Ning Shu collapsed and said, "I was wrong. Be gentle." Ning Shu sighed. She looked at her face in the mirror, which was covered in band-aids. Every scratch should be covered with a band-aid. Ning Shu felt that she was going to be ruined by this school doctor. Did the original owner have a grudge with the school doctor? With such a face full of band-aids, Ning Shu couldn't go to class. He directly went back to his rented house. But just as he walked out of the school gate, he saw a person who looked like Ling Xue's back. She went into the alley mysteriously. Ning Shu wanted to follow her. But he remembered that Ling Xue was a cultivator. Her consciousness was sensitive. She must be able to feel that someone was peeping at her. But seeing Ling Xue being so mysterious, Ning Shu's heart was itching. In the end, he decided to follow her quietly. Ning Shu didn't dare to make a sound. He thought about it and took out a handkerchief from his bag to wrap his feet. This way, the sound of his shoes touching the ground would be smaller. There was no need to ask how Ning Shu knew this method. He learned it from third-rate detective movies. Ning Shu quietly went around and stuck his head out to look at the alley. He saw Ling Xue talking to a man. Ning Shu couldn't hear what they were talking about. Suddenly, Ning Shu saw Ling Xue put her hand on the man's head. Then, the man's face revealed an extremely happy expression, as if he was floating in the air. Ling Xue's back was facing Ning Shu. Ning Shu couldn't see Ling Xue's expression clearly. He only saw that her hair and clothes were flying. There seemed to be wind blowing around Ling Xue's body. But Ning Shu couldn't feel the wind. This scene was very strange. Chapter 12. This scene was really strange to the extreme. Ning Shu covered his mouth, not allowing himself to make a sound. He inexplicably felt that he might have discovered a big secret. Moreover, in the original owner's memory, as well as the story of this world, there was no mention of this. Seeing Ling Xue's clothes fluttering in the wind around her becoming weaker and weaker, Ning Shu did not hesitate to turn around and run. It seemed that Ling Xue's business was about to end. Ning Xian entered the bookstore and pretended to be reading. When she looked up, she saw Ling Xue walking out of the bookstore. She did not know if it was her illusion, but Ning Xian felt that Ling Xue's aura was even stronger and colder. Ling Xue, who was outside, suddenly felt a probing gaze on her. Ling Xue stopped in her tracks and looked around. Ning Shu in the bookstore immediately looked away and looked at the book in his hand. He did not dare to look at Ling Xue again. Cultivators were too heaven-defying. Just a glance was enough to feel it. Ling Xue wrinkled her beautiful eyebrows. This gaze disappeared again. Ling Xue thought for a moment and left. After a while, Ning Shu let out a heavy breath. His back was covered in cold sweat. Too terrifying. Ning Shu felt that how could a normal person deal with the female lead who had cheated. Ning Shu hurriedly returned to his rented apartment and took a shower. Then he went to the Taekwondo dojo to train crazily. However, his heart could not stop hesitating. No matter how much he trained, he was still an ant to the female lead. This time, Ning Shu's claws were really numb. He was alone and had no support. Ning Shu carefully thought about the people in the story who had a grudge with the male lead or female lead. Then Ning Shu discovered that this world's villain boss was a mystery. There was no such thing as a villain boss. It was all about the female lead and male lead's domineering side. Wherever they went, they were invincible. If it was not for the conditions of this world, the male and female lead would have probably rushed out of the universe. There was no power to rope in. Even if there was power, under the glittering aura of the male and female lead, everything was trash. System, I hate you. Ning Shu roared in his heart. Ning Shu trained until midnight every day before returning home. However, when he returned home today, Ning Shu felt that something was wrong. He had just opened the door when he heard rustling sounds in the dark room. Furthermore, he could smell the stench of blood. There was someone at home. Ning Shu quietly took out a steel pipe from behind the door. As a single woman, how could he be at ease if he did not prepare something to ensure her safety? Hearing the rustling sounds in the room, Ning Shu felt the hair on his back stand up. He held the steel rod tightly. Using the weak street lamp outside the room, Ning Shu saw something squirming on the sofa. Without thinking, he picked up the steel rod and smashed it on the sofa. Suddenly, the sound of a pig being slaughtered came from the sofa. Hearing that it was a man's voice, Ning Shu was even more merciless. He smashed the steel rod on her body. Hey, I said enough. If you continue, I will shoot. A patient voice sounded. Go and turn on the lights. Ning Shu heard that the other party had a gun in his hand. He was so scared that he almost threw the steel rod away. Thinking that the steel rod was his only weapon, if he threw it away, he would be a defenseless lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Go and turn on the lights. The voice said with pain. Fuck, I told you to turn on the lights. Ning Shu immediately heard the sound of the gun safety being pulled. He was so scared that he ran to the door with the steel rod and turned on the lights. Ning Shu stood at the door, not daring to enter the room. He suppressed the urge to run. No matter how fast he ran, he would not be faster than a bullet. Nervously looking at the person on the sofa, Ning Shu exclaimed. School doctor. This was the school doctor. He was wearing a black trench coat and holding a pistol in his hand. When he heard Ning Shu's voice, he turned around and reached out his hand to adjust the glasses on the bridge of his nose. However, he found that he was not wearing glasses. He squinted his eyes and looked at Ning Shu. He curled his lips and said, Come here and bandage my wound. I don't know how to. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor who was obviously different from the one during the day. His temperament was completely different. If they did not have the same face, it would be impossible to believe that they were the same person. Could they be twins? You are the school doctor, right? Ning Shu pointed the steel rod at the school doctor. The school doctor's face was silent. He pointed the gun at Ning Shu and said, Come here. Facing the black muzzle, Ning Shu, who had not seen the world, was scared. He quickly said, Let's talk nicely. His legs trembled as he moved toward the school doctor. The school doctor's face was pale. He was probably beaten up by Ning Shu. Even his lips were pale. He took off his clothes with a cold expression. Take care of my wound. The school doctor pointed at his back. There was a hidden weapon embedded in his shoulder blade. Let's call it a hidden weapon for now. It was almost buried in his body. The school doctor could not treat this position by himself. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu's dazed expression and shouted, Fuck, hurry up. I'm almost out of blood. This person who was full of vulgarities was really the elegant school doctor. Ning Shu quivered and quickly found the medicine box. Looking at the hidden weapon that was almost buried in his flesh, he was a little troubled. He asked, How do I take this out? Take out the tweezers. Hurry up. The school doctor's voice was filled with pain. His skin was covered in cold sweat. "I'll take it out," Ning Shu said as he reached for the wound with the tweezers. "Oh, your sister. Hurry up," the school doctor roared. Then, Ning Shu was frightened by him and directly poked the tweezers into his wound. The school doctor was in so much pain that his body trembled. He curled up into a ball on the sofa. Ning Shu looked at the wound that was bleeding like a fountain. He quickly wiped the blood with gauze. Seeing so much blood, Ning Shu was frightened. He looked at the school doctor's pale face. He hardened his heart and directly stretched out a leg to step on the school doctor's body to prevent him from moving. Then, he quickly used the tweezers to catch the hidden weapon and pulled it out. It didn't come out. Again. When the hidden weapon was pulled out, blood sprayed on Ning Shu's face. The school doctor lying on the sofa completely fainted. His face was ashen. Ning Shu covered the wound with gauze. Looking at the blood spurting out, he panicked. He looked at the deep wound and rummaged through the medicine box. Finally, he found medicine to stop the bleeding. He crushed it and sprinkled it on the wound. It was clearly medicine. Ning Shu directly sprinkled it on the wound. It was too slow. With so much blood spurting out, how much blood could there be? Ning Shu wrapped the school doctor's wound tightly. He was so busy that he was sweating. He stretched out his hand and waved it at the school doctor's nose. Fortunately, he was still breathing. Ning Shu sat on the ground. He looked at the blood-stained gauze all over the room and put it away. He saw the gun on the coffee table with a dim luster. Ning Shu's heart turned cold. He glanced at the unconscious school doctor and secretly hid the gun. Seriously, why didn't he go to the hospital when he was injured? Why did he come to her house? How did he get in? Who was this school doctor? He wasn't an ordinary person at all. Why did he become a school doctor at Ace University? Chapter 13. When the handsome school doctor woke up, he was still in a daze when he opened his eyes. He didn't know where he was, but then his memory came back. He sat up on the sofa and pulled at his wound, causing him to gasp in pain. "You're awake." Suddenly, a faint voice sounded. The school doctor turned around and saw a woman standing behind him, holding a bowl of noodles and stuffing it into her mouth. "Who are you?" The school doctor instinctively reached for the gun at his waist, but he couldn't find it. Instead, he pulled at his wound, which was extremely painful. Ning Shu swallowed the noodles in his mouth and blinked at him. The corner of his mouth twitched. "You're here to be funny, right? Did you take my things?" The school doctor looked at Ning Shu with a gloomy face, and then his stomach started to growl. "Oh, I remember you. You're the girl who helped me remove the hidden weapon last night." "Ha ha ha." The school doctor laughed heartily. "Cook me a bowl of noodles too." Ning Shu nodded and went to cook noodles for him. He was really tenacious. He had lost so much blood, but he still woke up in the morning. Ning Shu put the noodles in front of him and said in a negotiating tone, "Uncle, I look so old. When I was in school, the girls all called me brother." The school doctor picked up the noodles and tasted it. "That's not the point. You're so badly injured. You should go to the hospital." Ning Shu really didn't dare to let this dangerous person stay in his house. The school doctor smacked his lips and said, "It doesn't taste good." "Hey, what did you say? I didn't hear it clearly." Ning Shu, so despicable. "Eat your noodles." Ning Shu rolled his eyes. "By the way, did you take my things?" The school doctor asked. "Give it back to me. It's too dangerous for a little girl like you to play with." Looking at the elegant demeanor of the school doctor, Ning Shu really wanted to spit at him. He quickly said, "What is it? I didn't take anything from you." "Oh, you're talking about the hidden weapon." I've put it away and will give it to you immediately. Ning Shu took out a box from under the coffee table and handed the hidden weapon to the school doctor. The hidden weapon was black in color and had the shape of a ring. It had sharp horns on the outside and emitted a dark glow. The school doctor glanced at Ning Shu and carefully examined the hidden weapon. He kept it and stretched out his hand to look at Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at his hands. His palms were yellow and covered with thick calluses. Such calluses could only be formed by doing certain things over a long period of time. His hands did not match his looks at all. Ning Shu reached out and shook his hand. Hello, hello. The school doctor directly shook off Ning Shu's hand and said, What I want is the gun. Where did you take my gun? Ning Shu looked at him warily and asked, Are you going to kill me if I return it to you? Big brother, since I saved your life, we should repay kindness with kindness and revenge with revenge. We have no enmity with each other, so let's forget about each other. What nonsense are you talking about? Even if I don't use the gun, I can still deal with you. Using a gun to deal with you is a waste of bullets. Hurry up and give me the gun. The school doctor said impatiently. He frowned and his whole face looked unapproachable. Ning Shu looked at his cold face and took out the gun from the room and handed it to the school doctor. He did not forget to refute. I think it's too dangerous to leave the gun on you. What if it goes off accidentally, so I put it away? The school doctor put away the gun and put it in his boots. He turned a deaf ear to Ning Shu's words. He stood up and said, Thank you for last night. I'm leaving. Ning Shu saw him walking towards the door. He did not look injured. If she did not personally remove the hidden weapon from his body yesterday, she would have suspected that he was not injured at all. Ning Shu opened the door and said to the school doctor with a smile. Uncle, take care. Don't come here in the future. The school doctor looked down at Ning Shu and said, Interesting. You are a very interesting person. Ning Shu heard such a cool line and was stunned. She looked at the school doctor in a daze. Could this guy be the male lead? She looked at the school doctor carefully and compared the description of the male lead in the story. The male lead and the female lead were both cold and domineering people. Because they were so similar, she felt that the other side was worthy of her. Ning Shu asked, Uncle, who are you? What's your name? The school doctor looked at her with surprise and said, Why do you want to know my name? Don't you call me uncle? Then you call me uncle. Uncle was purely Ning Shu's bad taste. He did not look old at all. Ning Shu took advantage of her young body and naturally called him uncle. Why do I want to know your name? Because I want to know if you are the cool male lead. Looking at the school doctor wearing a black windbreaker and leaving very coolly, Ning Shu felt that she was not very good. Thinking carefully, the male lead did not seem to be a school doctor in the story. The male lead was only suitable for fighting and killing. He was not suitable for the job of a school doctor. Then who was this guy? It seemed that there was no such person in the story. Ning Shu sighed. She felt so sad. What was with such an irrelevant person? She felt that the school doctor was not a simple person. How could a person who could run around with a gun be a simple person? After tidying up, Ning Shu went to school. When she passed by the school's bulletin board, she found that there was a punishment for her. The reason was that a lot of credits were deducted for fighting. If it was deducted again, she would probably be expelled. She saw that she was the only one whose credits were deducted. Everyone else was fine. She was the only one. What a second world. She was an orphan with no power and could only be bullied. Ning Shu hated this school, but for the mission, she had to stay here. This was a place for the strong. A small fish like her could only be swallowed up. People who did not have a family background could not survive in this school. She did not take the initiative to cause trouble, but so many people bullied her. She was really drunk. Walking to the classroom, the girls who fought with Ning Shu yesterday had a proud look on their faces. One must know that the credits of Ace School were very important. Even if they came to gild themselves, if they were expelled by Ace School, they would become a laughing stock. Ning Shu was simply annoyed. She did not complete the mission, and these people always jumped out to cause trouble for her. In the future, she would not fight in school. She would just cover them in a gunny sack and beat them until they were convinced. Sitting in her seat, Ning Shu picked up the three-legged table that fell on the ground. She glanced at Ling Shui in front of her. Thinking of the strange scene she accidentally saw yesterday, she felt a chill in her heart just looking at Ling Shui's back. She did not know what Ling Shui did to that man. It did not feel like anything good. Ling Shui turned her head and looked at Ning Shu in confusion. She asked coldly, "Lin Jiejie, why are you looking at me?" Chapter 14. Ning Shu didn't think that Ling Shui's senses would be so sharp. He only took a glance at her and she already knew. Ning Shu felt very stifled in his heart. "It's nothing, I was just mesmerized by your charming back," Ning Shu said without sincerity. Ling Shui pursed her lips and looked at Ning Shu with a murderous gaze. Was she teasing her? Ling Shui felt that she had been too indulgent with this woman. That was why she had the guts to tease her, a mortal ant. Being stared at by Ling Shui with a murderous gaze, Ning Shu expressed that it was enough. Ning Shu glanced at her and said, "What are you looking at? I don't think you're as beautiful as me." Ling Shui's face instantly turned cold. She looked at Ling Shui as if she was looking at a dead object. Ning Shu expressed that touching a tiger's butt like this was really ecstasy. Ning Shu was now courting death. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well make the female lead uncomfortable. It didn't matter if he died sooner or later. Ling Shui glanced at her indifferently and turned around. "So what if you have a golden finger? Just because you have the ability, it doesn't mean that you can bully others. Relying on the grace given by the heavens, you can wantonly play with other people's lives." Ling Shui looked down on mortal ants everywhere, but she used her ability to deal with mortal ants. "Fuck, did mortal ants provoke you? What did they do to you?" Ning Shu muttered in his heart. He felt that he needed to borrow some external force to deal with Ling Shui. No matter how good his martial arts were, he could take her down with a single shot. Speaking of guns, he thought of the cool school doctor. Ning Shu felt that he should try his luck. After class, Ning Shu ran to the school doctor's office. He thought that the school doctor was seriously injured and didn't come to work. But seeing so many female students in the room, Ning Shu almost bowed to him. He was really dedicated. When the school doctor saw Ning Shu, he adjusted his glasses. After the female students in the room had successfully taken advantage of him and left, Ning Shu said, Is your wound serious?" The school doctor sat on the sofa with her legs crossed. She looked at Ning Shu elegantly and said, "Why are you looking for me?" Ning Shu drew circles on the ground with his feet, looking very shy. "What's going on?" The school doctor adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses and said bluntly, "Seeing you like this makes me want to vomit." "Ning Shu, uncle, can I discuss something with you? You have to help me, or else I'll die." Ning Shu squatted down and pulled the school doctor's leg. The school doctor pushed Ning Shu's hand away and dusted her trousers as if there was something dirty on them. She looked at Ning Shu from the corner of her eyes and said coldly, "Why do I feel like you're clinging on to me? You probably don't know how pitiful I am. I was abandoned by my family, and after I was abandoned, I found out that I was actually my parents' biological daughter. Now, I've offended the goddess of the entire school. The goddess can destroy me with a flick of her finger. Don't you think I'm pitiful? The entire school is laughing at me, and I was beaten up and even had my grades deducted." As he spoke, Ning Shu felt that the original owner of this body was really pitiful. Yes, it's quite melodramatic. It's also quite suicidal. And then? The school doctor looked at Ning Shu. Why are you here? She said so much, but she didn't express her desire for help strongly enough. Ning Shu took out a tissue to wipe his nose and said, "Can you lend me your gun?" The school doctor raised her eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu with a sneer. She dusted her white coat and said, "Why should I lend it to you? Even if I lend it to you, do you know how to use it?" "I don't know how to use it, but I can learn it." Ning Shu said excitedly, "This is a matter of life and death. Uncle, if I'm not desperate, I won't come to you." Ning Shu felt that he was quite desperate. In order to borrow something that could save his life, he didn't care about his integrity at all. The school doctor squinted at Ning Shu and asked, "Who did you say you offended?" "Who?" "Oh, it's the goddess Ling Shui." Ning Shu blinked and looked at the school doctor. Up close, the school doctor's skin was very good. It was like white jade without any pores. "You offended a girl and you want to use a gun?" The school doctor's glasses flashed white light. "Isn't it just a girl?" "How can you say, isn't it just a girl?" Ning Shu looked around and said to the school doctor, "Ling Shui isn't an ordinary person. Just talk. Why are you so close?" The school doctor leaned her body and said with disdain, "Damn, it's really difficult to communicate with this guy. He always pays attention to the details." Ning Shu stepped back and said, "Ling Shui isn't an ordinary person." "I know. Didn't you just say it?" The school doctor frowned. "You like to repeat the same sentence twice. Brother, please get to the point." Ning Shu felt that this guy was playing with him, but he couldn't do anything about it. He only knew that this guy had good things on him. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu's expression and said, "What do you mean by Ling Shui isn't an ordinary person? Is she Superman, Spider-Man, or Iron Man?" Ning Shu, "No, Ling Shui is a god. She can kill people from a distance." "Do you believe it?" Ning Shu's expression was serious. She thought that the school doctor would laugh after hearing her words, but she didn't expect the school doctor to be serious and say, "Maybe she's a demon." Ning Shu, she was sure that this bastard was really playing with her. She was clearly talking about a serious matter. Ning Shu felt like she was the only one sober in the world. Ning Shu was so anxious that her mouth was bubbling. If she didn't want to help, she would pull it. Teasing people was fun. "I'll find you tonight," the school doctor said. Ning Shu quickly crossed her arms and said, "Why are you looking for me? I'm a good girl." The school doctor's mouth twitched and sneered, "You don't want anything anymore." Of course, she wanted. Ning Shu quickly said, "I'll sweep the bed and welcome you tonight." The school doctor, after receiving the school doctor's affirmation, Ning Shu no longer felt guilty when facing Ling Shui's cold and murderous eyes. She could even stare back. Seeing Ling Shui's unhappy expression, Ning Shu felt very happy. Ling Shui said in her heart that her tolerance for Ning Shu had reached its limit. If she had scruples before, Lin Jiejia was Ace's student. If Ace's student went missing, it would cause unnecessary trouble. Now that she was alone and didn't have a family backing her up, it was time for her to disappear. Tian looked at her strangely. Ling Shui felt that this aunt's gaze was too annoying. It was an illusion that she had been seen through. Ning Shu didn't know that the female lead had already planned to kick her out of school. She was now full of anticipation for the school doctor's arrival. If she had something to save her life, she would have some confidence in completing the fucked up mission. Chapter 15. Ning Shu waited until the middle of the night before the school doctor arrived. Moreover, he directly climbed over the wall from the balcony and walked into the house. Faced with such a situation, Ning Shu couldn't even show his displeasure. He poured tea for the old man sitting on the sofa. The school doctor was wearing a black windbreaker again. Ning Shu didn't know if it was the same as before. Every time he saw the windbreaker, Ning Shu was full of complaints. but he didn't know what to say. He looked at Ning Shu, picked up the water, looked at it, and put it down. He took out something covered in a leather cover and threw it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu caught it in a hurry. She looked at the school doctor and opened it. It was a pistol. This one felt lighter in his hand, unlike the previous one, which felt heavy in his hand. This is a female pistol. It has 2 safety bolts. It's suitable for you, the school doctor said lightly. Ning Shu sniffled and looked at the school doctor with tears in her eyes. Uncle, you're such a good person. I can't repay you, I don't want you to repay me with your body. You're so ugly. The school doctor glanced at her and took out a magnetic card. This is the gun club. Go there to learn guns. Ning Shu took the card. This time, she felt uneasy. The school doctor was so considerate. Ning Shu asked, Uncle, what do you need me to do? The school doctor grinned and said, Of course I need you to do something. You'll know when the time comes. We're just mutually beneficial. Ning Xian, speak human language. I don't understand. The school doctor came and left quietly. When he left, he didn't jump off the balcony. Instead, he left through the door. Looking at the black windbreaker fluttering in the wind, Ning Shu wanted to complain again. Ning Shu held the gun and felt a surge of strength and courage in her body. Courage and strength came from this small thing. Ning Shu put the card away. No matter what the school doctor's motive was, at least with this, he would have some protection. The next day, Ning Shu didn't even bother to go to class. Even if she went, she wouldn't understand. It wasn't that Ning Shu's IQ wasn't high enough, but the stuff was too high-end. Ning Shu felt that going to school was a waste of time. Ning Shu took the magnetic card and went to the gun club to learn how to shoot. He followed the address on the magnetic card and found the so-called gun club. He had thought that the club would be a magnificent place, or at least a high-end place. However, the small shop in front of him sold all kinds of things. There were even pornographic magazines and all kinds of restricted items. Was it really a club? Ning Shu walked over and an old man came up to him. Perhaps it was because there were too many undesirable things around, but Ning Shu felt that the old man's smile was very wretched. Uncle. Uncle, I want to ask if this is a gun club. Ning Shu stuttered. The old man's expression became serious, and then he immediately laughed and said, Little girl, this is a grocery store, not a club. You found the wrong place. Obviously, the address was good. Ning Shu suddenly thought that contact required a token or a secret order, so she took out the magnetic card that the school doctor gave her and shouted, Uncle, look at this. The old man took it and glanced at it. Then, he dug out something that looked like a swipe card from the dirty ground and swiped it. The old man looked at Ning Shu and said, You come with me. Ning Shu put away the card and followed the old man into the grocery store. The old man opened a thick door and said to Ning Shu, Go in. Ning Shu nodded and carefully went in. Sure enough, there was another world. It was dazzling, and the windows were bright and clean. This was the place of a club. At a glance, there were cubicles everywhere, and everyone in each cubicle was wearing earplugs. They were fully focused on the targets in front of them. The whole club was filled with gunshots. Ning Shu was speechless. It was the simplest school scene, but now it had become a gunfight. Ning Shu stood there, not knowing what to do. It seemed that there were no waiters here. Uncle, I want to shoot. Where should I go? Ning Shu asked a man who was wiping his sweat. The man looked at Ning Shu. Just this one look made Ning Shu feel as if he was standing in front of a pile of corpses. His whole body was cold, as if he had passed through a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The murderous aura was too strong. This person must have killed a lot of people. Where did this little girl come from? Old Manly let anyone in. Get out, the man said coldly. When he frowned, Ning Shu was hit in the face by a murderous aura. Ning Shu felt as if he was facing a ferocious beast. He saw the cruelty in the man's eyes. He rubbed the gun in his hand and narrowed his eyes at Ning Shu's head, as if he wanted to blow up Ning Shu's head. "Mom, this world is too dangerous. I want to go home." Ning Shu quickly took out the magnetic card and said, "I was introduced here by someone." The man saw the card in Ning Shu's hand. His face froze, and then he suddenly revealed a spasmodic smile. It was too horrifying. "You were introduced by Madman. The second square in front is Madman's position. You go." The man pointed at the square and said, "You go to his position to train." Madman? Was he talking about the school doctor uncle? Seeing such a ferocious person, his attitude changed instantly when he saw the magnetic card. How ferocious was the school doctor uncle? Even such a ferocious person looked at her with fear like a tiger. Since the school doctor uncle was so intimidating, Ning Shu immediately said, "Uncle, I don't know how to shoot. Can you teach me?" The man's face twitched and he said, "Yes. Thank you, school doctor uncle, for getting a coach for free. Put in the magazine." "I don't know." "You know how to pull the bolt." "I don't know." "You know how to pull the trigger." "I don't know." The man touched the gun at his waist and narrowed his eyes at Ning Shu's head. He seemed to be worried about something, and a spasmodic smile appeared on his face. "Sorry to trouble you, uncle." A lot of people had gathered around. When they heard Ning Shu's words, they all laughed at Ning Shu for being a rookie. If she didn't know how to shoot, then she didn't know how to shoot. There was nothing to be ashamed of. If she knew how to shoot, she wouldn't have come to this place. Don't mess around. This girl was introduced by Madman. The man bared his teeth and said. Hearing Madman's name, the surrounding people immediately scattered like birds and beasts. In a few seconds, the people in front of her disappeared. It was as if they would lose their lives if they heard Madman's name. Ning Shu was speechless. How ferocious was the school doctor? But Ning Shu didn't think he was that strong. She was even hit by a hidden weapon. She was too weak. "Uncle, we can start now." "Don't worry, I will study hard." So, Ning Shu started the shooting course. With a coach who was ready to explode at any time, Ning Shu's learning progress was very fast. A person's potential was really unlimited. Chapter 16. Ning Shu began to practice shooting. Under the watchful eyes of the instructor, Ning Shu fired a shot and missed the target. The bullet flew off to who knows where. The instructor touched the gun at his waist and looked at Ning Shu's head eagerly. Ning Shu suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She hurriedly said, "I'll try again. This time, I definitely won't miss the target." "Instructor," Ning Shu practiced with all her might. In the beginning, she didn't know where the bullet flew off to. The people in the club all avoided Ning Shu. If she was accidentally hit by this rookie, it would really be a waste. Ning Shu held the gun. If her posture was wrong, the instructor would immediately take out the gun and point it at her head. Ning Shu was so scared that she almost peed her pants. She improved very quickly. From missing the target at the beginning, she could now hit the target. Ning Shu was now staying in the club. He ate, drank, and defecated here, practicing non-stop. In the end, he couldn't even lift his arms. Ning Shu felt that he might have turned into an otaku's Chilan arm. However, Ning Shu didn't mind. This was a life-saving skill. Against the dangerous female lead, one more skill meant one more chance to save her life. The instructor gave Ning Shu a bottle of medicinal oil. He revealed a convulsive smile and asked, "What's your relationship with Madman?" Of course, Ning Shu didn't dare to say that. If she said that, she reckoned that this uncle who liked to explode heads would immediately explode her. Ning Shu laughed and revealed an unfathomable expression. The instructor touched the gun again. He probably really wanted to shoot Ning Shu in the head. Every time Ning Shu saw this fierce uncle touch the gun, she would be scared out of her wits. She had to thank the school doctor uncle for making people so afraid of him. She could use his power to intimidate others. Ning Shu ate, drank, and peed in the club. She practiced shooting every day. Now, she could actually shoot within the fifth ring. It was simply awesome. On this day, Ning Shu suddenly received a message from the school saying that he would be expelled if he didn't come to class. Alright, I'm determined not to be expelled. After staying in the club for so long, Ning Shu suddenly felt a little uncomfortable when he saw the peaceful atmosphere of the school. When Ling Shui saw Ning Shu, she clearly felt that this woman had changed again. She became more profound and gave people a dangerous aura. But this kind of danger was like a strong ant with a strong pincer. Ling Shui was very unhappy with this feeling. She met Ning Shu's eyes. Sensing Ling Shui's gaze, Ning Shu rolled his eyes at Ling Shui. Ling Shui's eyes suddenly became dangerous, and her body involuntarily emitted a spiritual aura pressure, giving people a great pressure. Ning Shu felt that he was quite good at courting death. Being so arrogant in front of the female lead, what else could it be other than courting death? Previously, Ling Shui ignored Ning Shu as if she was looking at a clown. Now, Ning Shu felt like a fishbone was stuck in her throat. She suddenly had a feeling that if she didn't get rid of this clown, her life in the future would be different. Ling Shui believed in her feelings. Ning Shu later found out why the school asked her to come to class. It was because tomorrow was the Prince Leng Ao's birthday. They asked her to come to class because Leng Ao had invited Ning Shu to his birthday party and asked Ning Shu not to forget. When Ning Shu found out the reason, he became a Spartan. He thought that he was so important that the school would inform him even if he didn't come to class. He was really thinking too much. Ning Shu went to the school doctor's office to see the school doctor. Seeing the room full of patients, Ning Shu really didn't understand why the school doctor came to school to be a school doctor. He always had a motive. How could a person who could make the coach so afraid be a simple school doctor? When the school doctor saw Ning Shu, he looked her up and down and said with some surprise, you're actually still alive. You didn't go to the club? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu almost vomited blood. This bitch clearly knew that the club was full of vicious murderers, but she didn't tell her and just barged in so casually. How could a person's heart be so sinister? Was there any beauty in it? Ning Shu grinned and said, "Thank you." Ning Shu patted the lady's pistol on her waist. The school doctor faintly glanced at her and said, "Are you at odds with the school beauty, Ling Shui?" Even uncle knows Ling Shui. It seems that Ling Shui's reputation is spread far and wide. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor with some horror and asked, "Uncle, you can't be." "Can't be what? Don't tell me you also like Ling Shui." Ning Shu felt very bitter. The school doctor raised his eyebrows and looked at Ning Shu. "Why do you think I like Ling Shui?" Wherever the female lead went, the males were basically killed instantly. Under the Mary Sue halo, none of the males were spared. Looking at the school doctor's assets, he was tall, handsome, and had a good figure. Most importantly, he had an aura that was both good and evil. He could easily become a supporting male lead. "Uncle, there are so many women in the world. Why fall on a tree?" Ning Shu almost cried. If the uncle had feelings for the female lead, how was she going to deal with the female lead? Ning Shu felt drunk and almost knelt down in front of the school doctor. The school doctor rubbed his forehead and looked at Ning Shu, who was crying. He stepped on Ning Shu's foot and even used his strength to crush it. "Ouch, damn, it hurts." Ning Shu held his foot and looked at the cold and emotionless school doctor. He was indeed cannon fodder. He felt that life was so bitter. If the female lead was crying, he would have held her in his arms and taken pity on her. At the very least, he would have given her a tissue to wipe her tears and snot. Don't make such a disgusting face in front of me. Ugly people shouldn't be so pretentious. The school doctor said coldly. Ning Shu, for some reason, Ning Shu felt that the current school doctor had completely lost the gentle feeling he had when they first met. Now, even if he wore glasses, it couldn't hide the evil aura in his eyes. Damn, is he a demon in human skin that wants to destroy the world? How's your practice? You can shoot now, right? The school doctor asked. Ning Shu stretched out a hand and said proudly, I can hit the 5th ring now. What the hell is the 5th ring? The school doctor looked at Ning Shu strangely and said, after practicing for so long, don't tell me that you can hit the target? The smile on Ning Shu's face cracked. Why did she feel like she was useless when she heard the school doctor's disdainful words? She had changed from an innocent and cute girl to a cute girl who could shoot a gun. Ning Shu shamelessly called herself a cute girl in her heart. I guess you embarrassed me at the club. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu. His glasses reflected a white light, giving off a sinister vibe. Ning Shu originally wanted to say that there was a coach who taught her, but seeing the school doctor like this, she decisively gave up. With someone teaching her, she was still so bad. Would the school doctor kill her? Chapter 17. In short, Ning Shu successfully knew how useless he was after being attacked by the school doctor from all angles. Ning Shu left the school doctor's office and wandered around the school garden. Looking at these beautiful flowers, it was great that she could come back to life. Hey, woman, who are you? What are you doing here? An unruly voice came from behind, startling Ning Shu. He turned around and saw Ling Ao standing not far away, raising his noble chin and looking at him from above. Ling Ao put his hands in his pockets and looked at Ning Shu. He looked very cool, but for some reason, Ning Shu felt that he was a Chinibu. Hey, I'm talking to you. Don't you know that you can't come here? Ling Ao looked at Ning Shu's dazed look, disgust flashed in his eyes. Ning Shu replied with an "oh" and planned to leave. She was too lazy to talk to this stupid prince, let alone reason with him. To be honest, Ace School had people with better family backgrounds than Ling Ao and the other 3 princes, but they were not in the limelight like them. They were all very low-key. Ling Ao saw Ning Shu leave as if she didn't see him. Ling Ao felt uncomfortable in his heart. He was usually sought after by people everywhere. Suddenly being treated like this made Ling Ao very uncomfortable. Ling Ao grabbed Ning Shu's arm, then shook her hand away as if she had caught a dog. She looked at Ning Shu with disdain and said coldly, "What's with your attitude?" Ning Shu's mouth twitched. She looked at Ling Ao. He had already left, but now he was grabbing onto her with an expression that said, "You've pissed me off." Ning Shu was also speechless. Was this person crazy? He was really unreasonable. What should she do? Are you mute? I'm talking to you. Ling Ao looked at Ning Shu with disgust. Remember, this is not a place you can come to. This garden and the villa opposite are not places you can go. Remember, lowly person. My bad temper. Ning Shu really wanted to pull out his pistol and shoot him in the head. From the moment Ling Ao approached, Ning Shu felt the heartbeat of this body quicken and its breathing quicken. When he heard Ling Ao talking to him, he felt like he was about to faint from happiness. Just how much did the original owner like this stupid prince? Even when he saw her body, his reaction was so big. Ning Shu experienced the blissful feeling that came from every part of his body. She didn't want to experience it, but this feeling was still transmitted to her brain. Yes, I'll keep that in mind. I won't go near this place, Ning Shu said, holding back the irritation in his heart. By the way, who are you? Leng Ao asked when he saw Ning's familiar face. Ning Shu also wanted to kneel down. How forgetful was this person? Not long ago, he invited her to a birthday party under Ling Shue's request, but she forgot about it in the blink of an eye. Ning Shu laughed coldly, the corner of his mouth twitching. Leng Ao frowned and looked at Ning Shu. Then, she remembered and looked at Ning Shu with even colder eyes. Don't find trouble with Ling Shui in the future. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you. Even if I find trouble with Ling Shui, I won't like you. Just give up, vicious woman. Leng Ao almost spat on Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu was speechless. What's with this feeling of self-satisfaction? Although the original owner liked her, she didn't like him. His narcissistic look really made her feel like her balls were hurting. You're so cool and arrogant. Is your family made? Do you have a problem here? Ning Shu pointed at his head and asked. I invited you to the birthday party because of Ling Shui. Ling Shui is magnanimous and won't argue with you, but I won't let you hurt Ling Shui. Remember your identity, lowly person. Leng Ao raised her chin like a god looking at a mortal. How does this person's brain work? He lives in his own world. There should be a limit to what he says. From the beginning to the end, she only said one sentence. You're so cool and arrogant. Earth can't tolerate you anymore. You'd better remember my words clearly. If you don't, I'll make you suffer. Leng Ao turned and left after saying that. Ning Shu took a deep breath. The world is so beautiful. Ignore the disharmonious things quickly. If you're fucking crazy, go take medicine. Why give up treatment? Ning Shu roared at her in disdain, turned and ran away. The next day, Ning Shu wore normal clothes and put the lady's pistol on his waist before going to the idiot Prince Leng's birthday party. The birthday party was at a private club. Ning Shu walked to the entrance of the club with his legs. There were many private cars parked at the entrance. Handsome men and beautiful women got out of the cars one by one, wearing expensive clothes. Ning Shu stood at the entrance because Gij didn't enter. Others looked at Ning Shu with disdain. Some girls in luxurious clothes even covered their mouths and snickered. Ning Shu immediately felt the malice of the world. Anrong also got out of the car. When she saw Ning Shu, she glared at him fiercely. She lifted the hem of her dress and walked to Ning Shu. She sneered, "You're actually here. Don't tell me you're going to guard the door." Ning Shu looked at Anrong. Since she was injured by Ling Shui, she hadn't come to class. Now, her face was still very pale. She didn't look like she was here to attend a birthday party. Instead, she looked like she was here to mourn. Ning Shu was also drunk. She forced herself to attend the birthday party even though her body wasn't well. Anrong obviously knew that she didn't look good now. When she saw Ning Shu looking at her face, Anrong exploded. She said fiercely, "What are you looking at? I won't forget the humiliation and bullying you gave me." Ning Shu didn't want to take the blame. He said, "You know, I didn't do anything. You were injured because of Ling Shui. Why are you blaming me?" Anrong was stunned. She said, "Ling Shui didn't do it on purpose. Besides, she didn't do anything to me. I didn't do anything to you either. I'm standing in front of you now. If I had Ling Shui's ability, I would have sent you back to the hospital bed. Anyway, Ling Shui wouldn't do this to me. Don't try to sow discord here. I'm telling you, I won't believe you," Anrong said firmly. Ning Shu, in order to highlight the charm of the main character, he actually made the supporting role have an infinitely low IQ. If such an obvious thing was put in front of Anrong, she would rather die than see it. The female lead was always right. If the female lead was wrong, then it was the world's fault. It's up to you. Believe it or not. Ning Shu walked around Anrong and planned to go in. Anrong reached out and grabbed Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned to look at her and said, "What? You want to fight?" And Rong glanced at Ning Shu arrogantly and said, "I won't cause trouble on Prince Ling's birthday. Also, are you sure I was injured because of Ling Shui?" "Of course. If I had supernatural abilities like Ling Shui, I would have fucking crippled you long ago." "Revenge," Ning Shu said disdainfully. And Rong also liked Prince Ling. Ning Shu couldn't understand. Wasn't she jealous of Ling Shui, whom Prince Ling liked? Instead, she became Ling Shui's lackey. After all, the original Lin Jiejie was so jealous that she went crazy. Chapter 18. And Rong didn't know what happened at that time. She only knew that she kicked over the table and bumped into Ling Shui's back. Then, she felt like a huge rock was on her body and her body was about to be crushed. After that, she didn't know what happened. When she woke up, it was already a few days ago. When she heard Lin Jiejie say that Ling Shui had superpowers, the first thing Rong thought of was the weight on her body. "Hey, Lin Jiejie, is what you said true?" Rong asked arrogantly. Ning Shu rolled her eyes and said, "Believe it or not, it's up to you." With that, she entered the club. The club was dazzling and prosperous. The hall was filled with the elegant sound of violins and the sweet and intoxicating aroma of champagne piled high. These people gathered in twos and threes, chatting with wine glasses in hand. Their movements were elegant and noble. They didn't look like high school students, but the elites of society. Ning Shu walked in. When they saw her clothes, they looked at her with disdain. They probably thought that Ning Shu was here to impress the crowd. Ning Shu didn't care about these people's gazes. Instead, she sat on the sofa in the corner and looked at the fruit platter on the coffee table. It was bright and delicious. Ning Shu picked it up and ate it. Ah, it was delicious. "Hey, look who's eating here, country bumpkin." And Rong walked over and sat with Ning Shu. Ning Shu glanced at her and continued eating. And Rong pushed Ning Shu. Ning Shu turned around and said, "What are you doing? Don't touch me. I'm very familiar with you. Do you think Ling Shui really has superpowers?" And Rong looked at Ling Shui, who was not far away. She was wearing a black gown and was extremely dazzling. Her brilliance could suppress the brilliance of everyone in the room. Ning Shu followed Rong's gaze and saw that she was in high spirits. Everyone in the ball was looking at her with envy, jealousy, adoration, and all kinds of other expressions. Who else but the female lead could have such elegance? A woman like this, confident and beautiful, should be pursued by many men. The problem was that there were always a lot of cannon fodder struggling under the female lead's feet. He didn't hesitate to sacrifice his soul to counterattack. "Ling Shui doesn't look like someone with superpowers," Rong said, but she felt that Ling Shui's injuries were real. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Before Superman transformed, who would know that she was Superman? "Can you tell that she has superpowers?" Rong was angered by Ning Shu's words and said, "Can't you talk nicely?" Ning Shu rolled his eyes and was very impolite. At this moment, the entire banquet hall quieted down. Only the elegant sound of the violin could be heard. The birthday boy, the idiot Prince Ling, walked out pretentiously under everyone's gaze. Anyway, Ning Shu did not like Ling Ao in all sorts of ways. The biggest reason was the reaction of this body. Whenever he saw Ling Ao, his body would want to fall into his arms. It was so annoying. When Rong, who was at the side, saw Ling Ao, her face revealed a dreamy expression like a young girl. Her pale face and condolence face flushed red. Ling Ao walked in front of Ling Shui in a very gentlemanly manner. He bent down and stretched out his hand, wanting to dance with the female lead. Ling Shui placed her hand in Ling Ao's hand arrogantly and stepped onto the dance floor to dance. Then everyone watched the two of them dance. And Rong's face darkened. Looking at the two of them on the dance floor, she said dejectedly, only someone as perfect as Ling Xue is worthy of Prince Lang. Sigh, cough cough cough. Ning Shu hammered his chest. He almost choked on the fruit. He looked at Enrong. What a great spirit she had. The women by the female lead side were either those who fought with the female lead for men or spare tires, just like the original owner, or those like Enrong, who were so subdued by the female lead that they would even give up the man they liked to the female lead. However, the result was the same. They were all cannon fodder. The former died physically, while the latter died spiritually. Lang Ao danced with the girl he liked. It was as if he was about to fly and ascend to immortality. His innocent look was so silly. Ling Xue danced without even panting. She took a glass of red wine from the tray in the waiter's hand and took a sip. To be honest, the wine in this world could not be compared to the wine in the cultivation world. Especially since there was no spiritual energy at all. Drinking too much would pollute the body. Ling Xue saw Enrong and Ning Shu sitting together from the corner of her eye. She was a little surprised and felt a little uncomfortable. In Ling Xue's eyes, Enrong was one of her people. Now, she was sitting with Lin Jiejia. Ling Xue felt betrayed. She would never allow betrayal. Ling Xue walked over gracefully. She looked at Enrong and said, "Are you feeling better?" Enrong quickly stood up and said, "Much better." In fact, Enrong felt a little uncomfortable. If he really cared about her, why didn't he come to see her even once? Moreover, she seemed to be injured because of Ling Xue. Ling Xue looked at Ning Shu from head to toe. Looking at her clothes, she showed a disapproving look and said, "Although clothes don't mean anything, it's the most basic etiquette." Ning Shu was almost convinced by the female lead. He said, "You know, I'm an orphan. I don't have the money to buy a dress. The clothes you're wearing are so beautiful." Ning Shu said as he wretchedly wanted to touch her. Ling Xue moved her body and dodged Ning Shu's wolf hand. She frowned and showed a disgusted look. How could a woman have no self-respect? She looked so wretched. Ning Shu said that in the face of life and death, something as insignificant as moral integrity could be abandoned. Enrong couldn't stand Ning Shu's wretched look. She pulled Ning Shu and said, "Ling Xue, Prince Lang is looking at you. He probably has something to talk to you about." Ling Xue saw that Enrong was protecting Lin Jiejia. Her face froze and showed a displeased look. She said coldly, "Enrong, do you want to stay with such a person?" Enrong didn't expect Ling Xue to say it so directly. Moreover, it sounded like she had something against her. Enrong quickly said, "Ling Xue, what are you talking about? Why would I be with such a lowly person?" Lowly person, she heard the word lowly again. She heard it from Lang Ao before. It seemed like she was a lowly person in Ace. Ling Xue nodded arrogantly and turned to leave. Enrong looked at Ling Xue's back with a heavy gaze. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at Enrong. He didn't expect Enrong to speak for her. Enrong was also possessed. It was impossible for her to be possessed. Enrong probably had a knot in her heart. After all, Ling Xue had hurt her before. Enrong, you should be more careful with a character like the female lead who would betray everyone in the world and kill everyone who betrayed her. However, this Enrong was also the original owner's target for revenge. It would be good if she was dealt with by the female lead. It would be a dog-eat-dog situation. However, Enrong spoke for her just now. Chapter 19. Ning Shu warned Enrong, "You should be careful of Ling Xue. She can kill people without leaving a trace." Ning Shu looked around and whispered into Enrong's ear, "I heard that Ling Xue is the boss of a gang. She has a lot of underlings under her. Why are you getting so close when you want to talk? Lowly person." Enrong sneered. "Ling Xue is the boss of a gang. Does she look like one? Who said that gangsters were all big and rough? They couldn't be elegant and beautiful. Ning Shu couldn't be bothered to tell her. She had already warned her. It wasn't her business whether she listened or not. Thinking of the original owner's wish and calling her a lowly person, Ning Shu decided to put a gunny sack over Enrong and beat her up in the dark of the night. This girl's words were too infuriating. Ning Shu was eating when she saw a pair of shiny black leather shoes stop in front of her. Ning Shu raised her head and saw the stupid prince with a shiny halo. He looked at Ning Shu with cold arrogance and saw the fruit juice flowing out of her mouth. His eyes flashed with disgust. He couldn't understand why Ling Shui cared so much about this person. Looking at this kind of person hurt his eyes. He had to wash his eyes. Come with me. I have something to tell you. Ling Ao looked at Ning Shu condescendingly. He didn't care about Ning Shu's reaction or whether Ning Shu agreed or not. It was as if he was sure that Ning Shu would follow him. Ning Shu wanted to be angry and not follow him. But when she thought about how much he hated her and still came to find her, she knew that something was wrong. He definitely had some ulterior motives. Ning Shu didn't think that the other party suddenly had a good impression of her. Stop joking. He was the loyal subject of the female lead. After killing the female lead, this stupid prince would no longer be deceived by Ling Shui. It was simple and crude, but effective. Ning Shu looked around and did not see Ling Shui in the banquet hall. This made Ning Shu have a bad premonition. He caught up with Ling Ao and asked, "Where are you taking me?" Ling Ao said in disgust, "Just follow me. You don't have to ask so many questions." Ning Shu felt even more uneasy. He turned around and was about to run when Ling Ao grabbed his collar. Ling Ao was so annoyed that he was about to die. He was already very unhappy to see this lowly person. Now that he saw that this lowly person still wanted to resist, Ling Ao felt even more uncomfortable. He grabbed Ning Shu's collar and said, "Lowly man, don't force me to use violence." What made Ling Ao even more uncomfortable was that this girl dared to resist. Girls wouldn't resist him in front of him. They would do whatever he told them to do. Just one look was enough to make a girl burst with joy. "Don't challenge my bottom line anymore, and don't try to refuse. I'm not interested in you." Ling Ao gritted his teeth. It seemed that his patience with Ning Shu had reached its limit. Ling Ao waved at the security guard standing in the corner. Immediately, a security guard in black came over and grabbed Ning Shu. Ning Shu wanted to touch the gun at his waist, but the security guard grabbed his arm. It was as if he was being supported by someone as he followed behind Ling Ao. Ning Shu was brought to the room at the back of the banquet hall. Ling Ao opened the door and pulled Ning Shu into the room. He saw Ling Shui sitting on the sofa in a graceful posture and glanced at Ning Shu. There were two other people in the room. They were the other two princes of the trio. Ning Shu had a very shallow impression of the two princes. Now, he saw them sitting on the left and right of Ling Shui, surrounded by beautiful men, making Ling Shui look like a queen. Ning Shu was thrown to the ground. He quickly got up and patted the dust off his body. In fact, there was no dust at all. He mainly touched the gun that was covered by his clothes. After touching the gun, Ning Shu felt a lot more at ease. Ling Shui smiled at Ling Ao and said, "All of you go out. I want to talk to her." The two princes beside Ling Shui stood up. Ning Shu glanced at them and found that the two of them had a dreamy expression on their faces, as if they had enjoyed something comfortable. This expression was so familiar. Ning Shu remembered what Ning Shu did to a man in the alley. Could it be that Ling Shui did something to them? Ling Ao looked at Ning Shu warningly and said, "You better not hurt Ling Shui. Otherwise, I will make you die miserably. Don't doubt my ability." Ning Shu really wanted to spit blood on this blockhead's face. What could she do to Ling Shui? The current situation was what Ling Shui wanted to do to her. The three princes in the room left and even closed the door with concern. Only Ning Shu and Ling Shui were left in the room. Ling Shui stood up and walked in front of Ning Shu. She sized her up and sneered, "Don't pretend. I know you are not the original Lin Jiejie." Ning Shu's pupils shrank. She rolled her eyes at Ling Shui and said, "Are you crazy? I am not Lin Jiejie. You are Lin Jiejie. Don't be ridiculous." Ning Shu insisted that she was Lin Jiejie even if she was beaten to death. "You are so stubborn. Let me extract your soul to see if you are Lin Jiejie," Ling Shui said as she reached out her hand and pointed it at Ning Shu's Tianling point. Ning Shu was shocked. Fuck, the female lead's ability was so heaven-defying. She must not let her extract her soul. Ning Shu immediately dodged her hand and rolled on the ground. She pulled out the gun at her waist and pointed it at Ling Shui. Ling Shui suddenly saw that the little flea actually took out a gun. Her brain short-circuited. She then said coldly, "You are indeed not the original Lin Jiejie. I want to see what kind of monster is inside your skin." Ning Shu held the gun and tried not to show her fear. She said, "I don't know what you are talking about. Are you not Ling Shui? Are you crazy?" If the villain said too much, it would give the protagonist a chance to turn the tables. Immediately, Ning Shu pulled the trigger and prayed that he could hit the target. At such a close distance, he should be able to hit the target. With her skill of hitting the fifth ring, she should be able to hit the target. Then, a scene that shocked Ning Shu appeared in front of Ling Shui. A transparent membrane appeared in front of Ling Shui, and the bullet could not penetrate this membrane at all. "Fuck, you are catching the bullet with your bare hands. Female lead, why are you so awesome?" Ning Shu was about to kneel down. He saw the bullet fall to the ground. Through the membrane, he saw Ling Shui's face was extremely dark. This time, he really pulled the tiger's tail. Seeing Ling Shui's face, Ning Shu unceremoniously fired 2 more shots at Ling Shui. He was still worried and directly used up all the bullets in the gun. Seeing that the barrier released by Ling Shui's spiritual energy blocked the bullets, Ning Shu felt bitter. He tore open the seam of his clothes, took out some bullets from inside, and put them in the pistol. Cold sweat broke out on Ling Shui's forehead. When she saw Ning Shu's actions, she was about to vomit blood. She didn't expect that she would fail miserably at such a simple task. This ant actually dared to make a move. She would extract her soul and torture it in the hellfire and astral winds. Chapter 20. Ning Shu and Ling Shui confronted each other. Ning Shu, who had finished loading his gun, pointed it at Ling Shui. Ling Shui's face was pale. She circulated the spiritual energy in her body to block the bullet. The spiritual energy in this world was unimaginably thin. Now, the spiritual energy that had been accumulated in her body for such a long time was gone. Her dantian was empty, and even her veins were starting to hurt. If it was in the past, she would be easily dealt with a wave of her sleeves. How would it be so difficult? Moreover, she couldn't even move. If she moved, she would have to form a new barrier. The spiritual energy in her body was already gone. "You're really courting death." Ling Shui's cold voice came out from between her teeth, carrying a strong murderous aura. Ning Shu pursed her lips. She knew that she had angered the female lead this time. However, she didn't regret it. Ling Shui wanted to extract her soul. Did she have to stretch her neck and let Ling Shui extract her soul? Her soul was her everything. Ning Shu held the gun. Squinting her eyes, she saw that Ling Shui's spiritual energy barrier seemed to be getting weaker and weaker. Ning Shu fired 2 more shots. Ning Shu actually felt like she was hitting a target. She just stood there and let her shoot. "Don't go too far. Ling Shui was about to explode in anger. She had never been in such a sorry state since she came to this world. The bullets fell to the ground one by one, and Ling Shui's spiritual energy barrier exploded. A bullet entered her collarbone. Ning Shu saw the opportunity and shot at her again. Ling Shui quickly dodged. Ling Shui looked at Ning Shu hatefully. She wanted to kill Ning Shu. She thought that without spiritual energy, she was just an ordinary person. Ling Shui wasn't that stupid to use her flesh and blood to take on this world's weapons. Ning Shu didn't care about battle etiquette. Moreover, the female lead was like a tiger with its teeth pulled out. If he didn't kill her now, he would have to wait until the female lead got better. Ning Shu was not such a gentleman. Ning Shu fired 2 shots at Ling Shui. Of course, with her 5-ring level, she couldn't hit the target. It seemed that she needed to practice more. This time, the female lead was unprepared and became a target. The next time the female lead saw her, she would definitely kill her. Ling Shui looked at her sinisterly. Her eyebrows were filled with ruthlessness. She covered her wound, opened the door, and ran away. Ning Shu hurriedly followed after her. "I'll take your life while you're sick." No one knew the female lead's ruthlessness better than her. Ning Shu wrapped his gun in his clothes and followed Ling Shui. The banquet hall was still filled with music, but Ling Shui was held back by Ling Ao. Ling Shui turned back to look at Ning Shu who had caught up with her, and then looked at Ling Ao who was holding her back. She was very annoyed. Of course, Ning Shu wouldn't shoot in front of so many people. If it caused a commotion and Ling Shui ran away, it would be troublesome. Seeing Ling Shui being held back by the cool and domineering Ling Ao, Ling Shui's face was as pale as a ghost. Her face was very impatient. She was wearing black clothes. The female lead was clearly bleeding, but Ling Ao didn't even notice. Ning Shu felt a sense of schadenfreude. "Let's see if your peach blossoms will bloom." Ning Shu walked towards the 2 people without leaving a trace. When Ling Shui saw Ning Shu approaching, she immediately pushed Ling Ao away and ran towards the door. Ling Ao who was pushed away was stunned. Ning Shu kicked Ling Ao who was in front of her away and chased after her. Ling Shui glanced at the woman who was chasing after her. The suffocation in her heart and the pain in her chest made Ling Shui's heart filled with ruthlessness. This feeling was like returning to the cultivation world, the feeling of being chased. Filled with helplessness, Ling Shui swore in her heart that in the future, she would definitely kill all the clowns who jumped in front of her. Today, she was bitten by an ant. Ning Shu could only be thankful that he went to learn Taekwondo. His physique had increased, otherwise, running a marathon with the female lead would be the rhythm of exhaustion. Suddenly, a car blocked in front of Ling Shui. Ling Shui's heart froze. She didn't know if it was a friend or a foe. Ning Shu who was following behind immediately stopped and instinctively ran back. Generally speaking, when the female lead was in trouble, there would be a benefactor to help her. Her benefactor was here, but she was going to be unlucky. She didn't think that she could play a gunfight with someone with her 5-ring level. Sure enough, Ning Shu turned around and saw a man get out of the car. He fired a shot at her back. Ning Shu immediately laid on the ground without any hesitation. His chin even hit the ground. Then, he quickly got up and ran out of sight. Ling Shui saw that the man's expression wasn't very good. He looked at Ling Shui with an extremely oppressive gaze. His nose twitched and he asked, "Are you hurt? You saw it and you still say it." Ling Shui said with some annoyance, "Are you going to loot a burning house? Are you going to kill me so that you can take over my gang?" The man laughed, picked up Ling Shui and threw her into the car. Then he started the car. He didn't forget to laugh at Ling Shui. The queen of the dark night was actually hurt by such a little girl. Ling Shui covered the wound. She felt very painful. Hearing his ridicule, she said fiercely, shut up. Ning Shu hid and watched the car leave from afar. She let out a long sigh. From now on, she had to be careful of her own life at all times. Ling Shui, who had suffered such a huge loss, would probably tear her apart. D.D. A rapid honking sound startled Ning Shu. She looked at the car next to her. The car window was opened. It was the school doctor uncle. Get in the car. The school doctor said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately got in the car. She saw the school doctor start the car and then it flew up. Can you slow down a little? Ning Shu almost screamed out. She turned around and saw the school doctor wearing a black windbreaker. She didn't know how to complain. Which car was it? The school doctor looked at the car in front and asked. Ning Shu was a little confused and asked, what? The car Ling Shui got in. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu with cold eyes, as if he was going to deal with useless garbage. Yes, it's this car. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu was a little confused. Why did the school doctor catch up? Was he going to save the heroine? Uncle, you can't do this. She tried her best to make Ling Shui bleed. Uncle, you're not going to save her, are you? Ning Shu asked carefully. I need her. The school doctor said. What the fuck, what the fuck? Ning Shu's face twisted in an instant. He was quite disheartened and said, if that's the case, why did uncle give me a gun? The school doctor looked at Ning Shu strangely and said, what's the conflict between me giving you a gun and me needing Ling Shui? Ning Shu, why did the school doctor give people the feeling that he was a monster? He said that he needed Ling Shui and even gave him a gun to shoot the heroine. Was there going to be a love and hate entanglement and imprisonment plot? Ning Shu shook his head. How twisted was this plot? What the fuck, you didn't even appear in the plot. Or are you a hidden big boss? Chapter 21. They followed Ling Shui all the way to a remote villa. The school doctor turned to look at Ning Shu. You little girl, why are you looking at me strangely all the way? Ning Shu withdrew his gaze. In his heart, he had already labeled the school doctor as a monster. She didn't want to pursue the female lead and directly wanted to imprison her. She was really unusual. The car in front stopped. Ling Shui was carried out of the car by a man and entered the villa. Ning Shu unfastened his seatbelt and secretly followed behind. He turned his head and saw the school doctor standing upright beside her. She didn't know how to hide. On the other hand, the school doctor looked at Ning Shu strangely and asked, what are you doing? I'm hiding. Do you know that I'm hiding? Squat down, Ning Shu said. The school doctor sneered and swaggered into the villa. She said, there are no cameras here. Even if there are, it's useless for you to hide. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu followed the school doctor quietly into the villa. It seemed that no one lived in this villa. At this time, voices came from upstairs. The school doctor took out her gun and went upstairs. Ning Shu tiptoed behind her. The voices inside were getting louder and louder. There was also an inexplicable sound. The school doctor opened the door a little and saw two people entangled and rolling inside. Ning Shu went over to take a look. His mouth opened into an O shape. What the fuck? Wasn't the female lead injured? Why did they suddenly roll in the sheets? He was caught off guard and saw an erotic scene. Ling Shui was also helpless. There was no spiritual energy in her body at all. The wounds on her body were very painful. The fastest way was to take the yang to replenish her yin. In the cultivation world, this was what the women of the demon cultivators did. Besides, the man on top of her was not bad. It was not a loss to roll once. He could also replenish the spiritual energy in her body. Ning Shu was full of admiration for Ling Shui. How could she do that? Shouldn't she have bandaged the wound first? The school doctor placed his hand on Ning Shu's head and pushed her behind him. At this moment, the man on the bed narrowed his eyes and looked at the door. The school doctor hid, and when she looked into the room again, there was no one in the room. The school doctor kicked the door open, and Ning Shu followed her into the room. He disappeared so suddenly. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor. Where is he? The school doctor fumbled around the room. She was speechless when she saw Ning Shu staring blankly at Shu Qin. She said, there must be a mechanism in this room. Look for it. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound and began to search the room inch by inch. Fuck, why was the main character so cool, but she had to search everywhere without a care for her image? The school doctor turned a vase and a passageway appeared on the wall. The school doctor took the lead and went in. Ning Shu quickly followed. There was only a simple passageway in the secret room. There were a few dim oil lamps, and it looked very eerie. Ning Shu looked at the school doctor, who was bent over in front of her. A dripping sound could be heard not far away. What was that sound? The school doctor in front sped up. Ning Shu walked closer and saw that it was a bomb. The number on it kept jumping. Why was there a bomb here? Was it left by Ling Shui? Uncle, do you know how to defuse bombs? A little. The school doctor looked at it and picked up the bomb to take a look. Then, he really began to defuse the bomb. Ning Shu saw his casual look and couldn't help but ask, do you really know how to defuse it? If you can't, then defuse it. The school doctor threw the bomb into Ning Shu's arms. Ning Shu almost peed in her pants. She hurriedly stuffed the bomb back into the doctor's arms. I won't say any more. Hurry up and defuse the bomb. The school doctor glanced at her and took out a pair of shiny medical scissors from his bag. Without hesitation, he picked up the bomb string. Then, the number stopped jumping and the color dimmed. Ning Shu let out a long sigh of relief. Her heart returned to her heart. Oh my God, that was really scary. Ning Shu followed behind the school doctor. Suddenly, she thought of a question and asked, Uncle, why do we have to defuse the bomb? Can't we run? The school doctor, who was walking in front, paused and turned around. I was affected by your IQ. You are a pig teammate. TSK, you didn't think of it either, right? Ning Shu looked at him in disdain. Didn't normal people run when they saw a bomb? After walking for a while, they finally saw a light in front. As soon as they came out, they encountered two gun barrels pointing at her and the school doctor. Ling Shui and Mo Lingshuan stood side by side. Mo Lingshuan pointed his gun at the school doctor and said in a deep voice, Who are you two? Ling Shui looked at Ning Shu and her eyes were very cold. She said, Lin Jiejia, you are getting bolder and bolder. Ling Shui was humiliated by Ning Shu. She was actually hurt by this ant. Ling Shui wanted to pull out Ning Shu's soul and experience all kinds of torture. She wanted to destroy her soul so that she could never be reincarnated. Ning Shu looked at Ling Shui. She was clearly injured just now, but her expression now looked as if she wasn't injured at all. Facing Ling Shui's gaze, Ning Shu had a bad feeling. She looked at the school doctor. He thought that the school doctor was an awesome person. Fuck, he was caught just like that. He didn't understand what was so awesome about him that made the people in the club fear him like a tiger. Ling Shui looked at the school doctor again. Looking at his indifferent face, she was disgusted. What are you trying to do by following me? Haven't you been defeated by my hidden weapon? So the hidden weapon that night was shot by Ling Shui. Just how persistent was the school doctor? The school doctor wanted to push the glasses on his nose up, but he realized that he wasn't wearing them. He said, I said that I need you. Ning Shu, fuck, uncle, at this time, you actually said that in front of the male lead. We will die a horrible death. Ning Shu pulled the school doctor's sleeve. "Uncle, can you speak properly?" Ling Shui was obviously angry. "Are you crazy? And, you are following me. Be careful that I don't kill you." Mo Lingshuan looked at the school doctor with deep hostility. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the school doctor's head. He said to Ling Shui unhappily, "Who is this person? What is your relationship with him?" Ling Shui looked at her first man in this world and felt a little emotional. She said, "I don't know where he came from, but he has been following me." Mo Lingshuan's expression became a little better. His cold face looked a little gentler. He said coldly, "This kind of person should be killed directly. What's the point of keeping him alive?" As he said that, he pulled the trigger. Ning Shu was about to kneel. Was she really going to die here? Ning Shu sighed. He approached the school doctor and whispered, "Uncle, let's run now. Please don't use your intelligence to influence me." The school doctor saw Ning Shu pulling his sleeve and quickly pushed her away. Chapter 22. The school doctor first looked down on Ning Shu's IQ, then slowly took out a bomb from who knows where. "This bomb looks familiar, isn't this the bomb in the passageway? When did the school doctor carry it with him? Didn't he dismantle it before? Why is it back together now?" The timer on the bomb jumped, and what made Ning Shu collapse was that there was only 1 minute left. Ning Shu stared at the school doctor dumbfoundedly. This guy is really a lunatic, no wonder people call him a lunatic. Mo Lingshuan looked at the bomb in the school doctor's hand. Wasn't this the bomb he purposely threw in the passageway? The school doctor's mouth curved into a smile, and the way he held the bomb in his hand was like holding an apple. He walked in front of Mo Lingshuan and Ling Shui, and actually reached out his hand to touch Ling Shui's face. In such a situation, he was still blinded by lust. Damn, Ning Shu took 2 steps back and shouted at the school doctor, "Uncle, let's run first." The school doctor completely ignored Ning Shu, and touched Ling Shui's face. His eyes were focused, and his face had a kind of absolute focus, a kind of focus of worship. Ling Shui felt that hand on her face, and it felt like a poisonous snake slithering on her skin, causing goosebumps to appear on Ling Shui's skin. Mo Lingshuan had never met such a person who wasn't afraid of death. He actually touched his woman in front of him, and it was a woman he admired. Mo Lingshuan pointed the gun at the school doctor's head, but this lunatic actually hugged Ling Shui tightly, and said nonchalantly, "I'm willing to be blown up together with her." "Ning Shu, my dear mother," Ning Shu simply wanted to kneel down to this lecherous uncle. This guy is simply crazy. Hearing the ticking sound of the bomb, Ning Shu's heart almost went crazy. "Uncle, stop touching. What should we do now?" Ling Shui's mood was even worse than Ning Shu's. She was hugged by this ant-like man. She didn't know where this damned man came from, but he kept harassing her. If it wasn't for her ability, she would have been caught by this man. Fuck, what was the situation now? Ling Shui felt that there was a cold knife on her back. The cold feeling made her feel very uncomfortable. This ant actually dared to point a knife at her. Unforgivable, Ling Shui coldly asked, "What are you trying to do?" The school doctor said, "Actually, I don't mean anything. I said that I need you. Do you want to come with me?" Ning Shu almost cried. Did the uncle not know what was going on? He didn't even know who to point his gun at. If it was possible, Ning Shu really wanted to blow up the uncle's head because he didn't know what was going on. Mo Lingshuan coldly pointed at the school doctor. The school doctor was carrying Ling Shui. Ning Shu shouted, "Didn't you guys notice the bomb? The bomb is about to explode." Could this kind of emotional entanglement make people forget about life and death? The school doctor nonchalantly looked at the bomb in his hand. He seemed to be very surprised. It's really going to explode." Mo Lingshuan, Ling Shui, Ning Shu, Ling Shui was simply about to go crazy. She couldn't reason with such a lunatic. She could only say, how about this, everyone throw away their guns. You throw the bomb too. Then all of you throw away your guns. The school doctor slowly said. He wasn't anxious at all. It was said that unreasonable people were afraid of those who didn't care about their lives. Mo Lingxuan had been in the underworld for so long, but he had never seen such a person. There was definitely something wrong with his brain. Mo Lingxuan coldly looked at Ning Shu and said, you and I throw it at the same time. The current situation was really strange. When Ning Shu threw away his gun, he quickly fell to the ground and a bullet brushed past him. Fuck, he actually used underhanded methods. Ning Shu cursed in his heart. Mo Lingxuan first fired at Ning Shu before throwing away his gun. If it wasn't for Ning Shu dodging quickly, he probably would have been shot. You're not being honest. The school doctor looked at Mo Lingxuan. The scalpel at Ling Shui's waist immediately pierced Ling Shui's skin. Ling Shui groaned in pain. The cold thing penetrated deep into her body. This man was simply a lunatic. Now you should throw the bomb away. Mo Lingxuan was very unhappy in his heart. At that time, when he was flirting with Ling Shui, he felt that someone had entered the secret passage and threw a bomb into it. It was a very enjoyable feeling, but now, the situation made him very unhappy. The school doctor shrugged his shoulders and threw the bomb towards Mo Lingxuan. Mo Lingxuan caught the bomb and saw the number jumping on it. Even if Mount Tai didn't collapse in front of him, Mo Lingxuan's face was still slightly pale. Mo Lingxuan used all his strength to throw the bomb far away. Then, with a boom, a scorching heat wave rushed towards him. Ning Shu was already lying on the ground, so he wasn't injured. Instead, the unscrupulous school doctor directly hid behind Ling Shui. Ling Shui was so miserable that even her hair was scalded by the heat wave. Moreover, her face was red. She didn't have any noble and elegant appearance. Ning Shu covered his mouth and laughed. He was really speechless towards the school doctor. Did he really like Ling Shui? A normal man should be pressing down on the female lead and protecting her at this time. He actually hid behind the female lead. Uncle, why are you so cowardly? The female lead definitely wouldn't like a coward like you. Mo Lingxuan crawled up from the ground. Seeing Ling Shui's red face and exploding hair, he coldly scolded the school doctor, hurry up and let her go. Why should I let her go? The school doctor dragged Ling Shui towards Ning Shu. If possible, Ning Shu really wanted to tell him not to bring the female lead over. The female lead was a troublemaker. If he stayed with the female lead, he would meet all kinds of trouble. The school doctor kicked Ning Shu, pig teammate, what are you daydreaming for? Hurry up and leave. Ning Shu glanced at Ling Shui. He didn't think that Ling Shui would be so obedient and let them take her away. Moreover, don't forget that Ling Shui was a cultivator and had some mysterious methods. Ling Shui wanted to use some methods, but her body didn't have any spiritual energy. It took her a lot of effort to absorb some spiritual energy from Mo Lingxuan's body and used it to treat her wound. Her wound had just healed, but now her back was stabbed by this person. Ling Shui's heart was about to explode. These two people were in cahoots. One used a gun to injure her, and the other used a knife to stab her. They were simply despicable. She must make these two people pay the price. Mo Lingxuan coldly looked at the school doctor who was courting death and coldly said, "You have successfully angered me. I will make you beg for death. I am the one who will make people beg for death." The school doctor felt quite astonished. Mo Lingxuan was about to explode in anger. The veins on his forehead were throbbing. This person must be sick. Ning Shu felt that life was really fucked up. Fuck, what's the point of this conversation? Shouldn't we be running for our lives now? Chapter 23. Mo Lingxuan took out his phone, probably to call his underlings. Then, he stared coldly at the school doctor and Ning Shu, as if to say, "You're dead meat." The eyes of the boss of the underworld weren't for show. At least, Ning Shu's legs went soft under such a gaze. He saw the school doctor hugging Ling Xue's neck and not letting go. "Uncle, what should we do now?" Ning Shu asked. "Let's run quickly. If there are more people, we won't be able to run." The school doctor nodded and dragged Ling Xue away. Mo Lingxuan caught up and pulled Ling Xue. Then, the two men pulled Ling Xue like a tug-of-war. Then, the school doctor stabbed the knife on Ling Xue's back deeper and deeper. Ning Shu widened his eyes at the side. Looking at the blood on the ground and Ling Xue's pale face, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hearing the sound of a horn not far away, Ning Shu guessed that Mo Lingxuan's men had arrived. He pulled the school doctor and said, "Uncle, let's go first. Their men are here." The school doctor unwillingly let go of Ling Xue. Then, he quickly took out his gun and shot Ling Xue. Then, he pulled Ning Shu and ran quickly. Ning Shu turned around and looked at Ling Xue. Her expression was also blank. First, she was stabbed, and now she was beaten. Ning Shu turned around and looked at the school doctor. He panted and asked, "Uncle, didn't you say you needed her? Why did you shoot?" Shooting without hesitation, "Do you really like the female lead? Light a candle for Ling Xue. Stop, the people in front, stop for me, stop for this daddy." Behind, Mo Lingxuan's men shouted and shot from time to time. Ning Shu and the school doctor ran to the road halfway up the mountain. Seeing that there weren't any cars passing by, the sound behind them got closer and closer. The school doctor smashed the window of the car parked on the road with his gun. Then, under Ning Shu's confused gaze, he started to unlock the car. "Isn't this scene in a movie? Uncle, can you really do it? Uncle, hurry up. The people behind are almost here. Hurry up, hurry up. You're here." The school doctor said lightly. She didn't know how to play. The gunshots behind them were getting louder and louder. Ning Shu hurriedly got into the car. Seeing the school doctor bending over slowly, Ning Shu was about to break down. Finally, at the last moment, the school doctor really drove the car away. Ning Shu turned his head and looked at the people chasing behind. These people could only watch as the car drove away. Ning Shu's heart was overjoyed. Oh my God, it was too exciting. His heart was beating wildly in his chest. The school doctor beside him had a face full of displeasure. Seeing that this pig teammate was still looking at him, the school doctor sneered. "If it wasn't for you, I would have gotten rid of Ling Xue long ago. You're a pig teammate." Ning Shu was speechless. Was there still any revolutionary friendship left? At the very least, they had escaped together. "Uncle, you know how to defuse bombs and steal cars. What else can you do?" Ning Shu asked. Seeing that the school doctor was an all-rounder, if she had this ability, wouldn't it be easier to complete tasks in the future? The school doctor, Ning Shu, rolled his eyes. These are the most basic things. Forget it, a pig teammate like you will never understand. Did he have to keep talking about a pig teammate? Ning Shu looked at the side of the school doctor's face and asked, "Why did you shoot Ling Xue? Didn't you say that you needed her? Can you not ask such stupid questions? Injuring her can disturb that man's judgment. Didn't you see that the man didn't chase after her? His minions are all trash." The school doctor said matter-of-factly. Ning Shu, pfft. Ning Shu covered his chest and said, "Didn't you say that you needed her? Why did you shoot her? Didn't you like her? That's why I shot her in the shoulder. She won't die." The school doctor said matter-of-factly. "Ning Shu, are you sure you're not a pervert? It was so messy." He couldn't understand what this person was thinking. Ning Shu felt that after knowing this uncle, his worldview had changed. Why were they so love-hate? Although she successfully escaped this time, the loss was really too great. She lost her pistol and offended the male and female protagonists. Moreover, it was a gang with many underlings. Ning Shu felt that it would be difficult for her to do anything in the future. Uncle, you have to protect me. My life is in danger now. Those people will definitely take revenge on me. Ning Shu said pitifully. Why should I help you? You're so useless. Staying with you affects my IQ. The school doctor said coldly. Ning Shu said with a bitter face, Uncle, you can't be like this. We're partners, aren't we? I don't know you. Ning Shu, heartless, cold, unreasonable. No matter what happened, Ning Shu didn't dare to go home alone. He stayed in school every day. After class, he ran to the school doctor's office. What surprised Ning Shu was that the injured Ling Shui came to class early in the morning a few days later. Although she didn't look well, she didn't look injured. Ning Shu was stunned. Did Ling Shui eat an elixir? She was injured yesterday and came to class today. How did she sit? Seeing Ning Shu, Ling Shui revealed her white teeth. She looked at Ning Shu calmly, but it made Ning Shu's heart skip a beat. Ling Shui sat in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu held his three-legged desk and narrowed his eyes at Ling Shui's back. She and Ling Shui had shown their true colors. They wouldn't let each other go. Ning Shu wasn't afraid anymore. She touched the gun at her waist. It wasn't an ordinary gun. It was given to her by the school doctor to save her life. After class, Ling Shui was lying on the desk, seemingly sleeping. Rong walked over and asked with concern, Ling Shui, what's wrong? Are you okay? Ling Shui looked up and shook her head. I'm fine. Rong immediately shouted at Ning Shu, did you bully Ling Shui? Ning Shu, what the hell? Rong raised her chin and said, are you asking for a beating? How dare you bully Ling Shui? Ling Shui stood up and pulled Rong. I'm fine. She didn't bully me. You're always like this. You're bullied and you don't say anything. That's why you let others bully you. Rong expected better from Ling Shui. Looking at Ling Shui's weak appearance, she didn't look like she had a superpower. Recently, there had been rumors in school that Ling Shui had a superpower. Rong was already worried. Now that she saw Ling Shui's weak appearance, she knew it was a rumor. Let me tell you. Bullying Ling Shui is bullying me. I'll make you suffer. Rong raised her chin to Ning Shu. Chapter 24. What the hell? What the hell is going on? Ning Shu looked at Ling Shui. She didn't have her usual elegance. Instead, she looked like a shy little white flower fluttering in the wind. Seeing how Rong was protecting her, Ning Shu could only sigh. Ling Shui had more tricks up her sleeves in just a few days. Ning Shu could clearly feel that the students in the classroom were looking at her with disdain and rejection. Obviously, they all thought that she bullied Ling Shui. Ning Shu wanted to vomit blood. She didn't do anything. How did she bully the female lead? The female lead's battle prowess had soared again. She had both martial prowess and brain power. She was simply heaven-defying. Previously, Ling Shui was cold and elegant, basically ignoring him. She had absolute confidence in her ability to crush others. But now, Ling Shui was obviously targeting Ning Shu. Moreover, she was using such a method to deal with her. You still dare to say that you didn't bully her. At Prince Leng's banquet, you chased after Ling Shui and hit her. You still dare to say that you didn't bully her. She was bedridden for several days, Rong said disdainfully. She looked at Ning Shu as if she was looking at scum. Ning Shu's eyebrows twitched. She was used to seeing Ling Shui's cool and arrogant appearance. But now, she really couldn't get used to her weak and delicate appearance. And Roan wanted to grab Ning Shu's hair. Ning Shu dodged and threw her over his shoulder. And Roan cried out in pain. Since you want to pretend to be a little white flower, if I don't do something to you, I'll be letting myself down. Ning Shu slapped Ling Shui twice. Ling Shui was stunned. She covered her face and looked at Ning Shu in a daze. Obviously, she didn't believe that Ning Shu would really dare to hit her. Then, she looked at Ning Shu with a gaze that was incomparably cold. The people in the classroom were also stunned by Ning Shu's slap. In their eyes, this orphan girl, this lowly person, was simply crazy. She actually dared to hit the goddess. The goddess wasn't called a goddess for nothing. It represented the support the students of Ace Academy had for Ling Shui. Ning Shu didn't care about these looks at all. She had nothing to lose. She had been kicked out of the Lin family and had nothing to do with the Lin family. Her biological parents hadn't been found yet, so she was completely single. But Ling Shui was different. She was beautiful and aloof, and she had the adoration of the third prince of the school. Even Enrong, who was standing up with her hands on her waist, was dumbfounded. Looking at Ning Shu's eyes, she felt that she was courting death. This woman was absolutely crazy. Enrong was thrown to the ground. She was extremely embarrassed and angry, but now that she saw a trace of madness between Ning Shu's brows, she silently distanced herself from him. Enrong's actions made Ling Shui's heart sink. She then saw that no one in the classroom had any intention of speaking up for her. The reason why Ling Shui came to school so quickly was because this Lin Jiejia had been hiding in the school all this time. Even after school, she stayed in the school. It was impossible for her subordinates to enter Ace Academy to look for her. This school wasn't as simple as it looked. When Ling Shui was still a fledgling, she was very obedient in school. She continuously absorbed the essence of many people and even rolled in the bed with Mo Lingshuan many times before the wounds on her body healed. Perhaps because she had absorbed too much essence, her spiritual energy became more mottled. Sometimes, she would even suffer a backlash. But Ling Shui had no choice. Cultivation was her life-saving thing. After being injured by modern weapons time and time again, Ling Shui didn't dare to think of modern technology anymore. Previously, she looked down on these things, but she was injured by scum with guns. It was all because of this Lin Jiejia that everything started to go wrong. She wanted this woman to be unable to stay in this school. Looking at Ling Shui's aggrieved appearance, Ning Shu suddenly had the urge to take out a gun and blow her head off. But after thinking about it, she still gave up. She couldn't let this body bear the crime of murder. Scram! Ning Shu pushed Ling Shui who was blocking in front of her. Ling Shui staggered and almost fell. She looked extremely weak, making Ning Shu even more arrogant and despotic. Fuck, she was really addicted to acting. Seeing this Ling Shui, Ning Shu really wasn't used to it. Female lead, where's your coolness? You suddenly changed your style. What do you want others to do? As soon as Ning Shu came out of the classroom, he ran to the school doctor's office. He saw the school doctor wearing glasses and seriously explaining to a girl about her period. The girl's face was full of shyness. Ning Shu even saw the school doctor's eyes reflecting a bright light. Ning Shu was really worried for the girl. If you knew that the school doctor in front of you was a pervert who could take out a gun and shoot you at any time, you probably wouldn't appear in front of the school doctor anymore. The school doctor looked at Ning Shu indifferently and said, "What's the matter? It's not dark yet and you want to sleep in my school doctor's office again?" "No, Ling Shui came to class," Ning Shu said. The school doctor faintly said, "Oh." Looking at Ning Shu's stupid face, he said, "This is a school. Don't tell me you want me to do something to her in school." Ning Shu didn't want to talk to this person at all. There was simply no way to communicate with him. What she meant was that if Ling Shui came to class, her life would be difficult. After coming out of the school doctor's office, Ning Shu returned to the classroom and saw that Ling Xue's seat was surrounded by people. There were both boys and girls. The most sudden one was the school's third prince. They all surrounded Ling Xue. The moment Ning Shu entered the classroom, everyone's eyes were on him. Ning Shu walked to his seat and saw Ling Xue lying on the table, ignoring the comforting people around her. This made Leng Ao's face reveal an annoyed and distressed expression. Leng Ao looked at Ning Shu as if nothing had happened. He stretched out his leg and kicked the three-legged table that Ning Shu had just supported. "Fuck, why do you always vent your anger on my table? My table already has 3 legs. It's already very pitiful." Ning Shu raised his head and looked at Leng Ao indifferently. Leng Ao was a little frightened by his gaze. Then, anger surged in his heart. He was actually frightened by the gaze of a lowly person. Moreover, it was the gaze of a girl. "I've told you many times. Don't bully Ling Xue. If you bully Ling Xue, I'll make your life a living hell." Leng Ao's face was a little distorted. He was angry out of humiliation. Obviously, he was frightened by Ning Shu's gaze just now. "Meeting an idiot like you already made my life a living hell." If it wasn't for the mission, Ning Shu really didn't want to see him. "Hey, I'm talking to you. What's with your attitude?" Leng Ao felt that Ning Shu's gaze was especially strange and disdainful. This lowly person actually dared to despise him. What right did he have to despise him? Did he know his situation? He was just an orphan. Chapter 25. Ning Shu was really frustrated by Leng Ao's Chunibu look. Seeing that his desk was kicked to the ground, a 3-legged desk was really pitiful. Leng Ao looked at Ning Shu coldly, "Apologize to Ling Xue, or I'll let you die a horrible death. Do you still want to stay in this school? I can make it so that you can't stay in this school anymore." Ning Shu raised his eyelids silently, looked at Leng Ao and said indifferently, "Stand up the table for me." "What did you say?" Leng Ao's face was filled with disbelief. You want me to stand up the table for you? Are you crazy? You lowly person, you're crazy. Stand up the table for me." Ning Shu said indifferently. "Have you lost your mind?" Leng Ao looked at Ning Shu in disbelief, as if he was looking at a lunatic. "Do you know who I am?" Ning Shu had heard this sentence so many times that his ears grew calluses. He said it as if he was a god who couldn't be insulted at all. "Stand up the table for me." These people who were watching the show all felt that Ning Shu's brain was not normal. He actually had the guts to treat Prince Leng like this. The surrounding girls all looked at Ning Shu with laser-like eyes. They were all condemning Ning Shu for being rude to Prince Leng. Leng Ao took a deep breath, stretched out his hand and clenched his fist until it cracked. He moved his neck and said arrogantly, "I said that I don't hit women, but you're an exception now. You should feel honored that you've broken my vow not to hit women." "Ning Shu, what's with this feeling of self-satisfaction? How long are you going to talk to yourself?" Ning Shu walked to Leng Ao in a few steps. Under Leng Ao's confused gaze, he directly threw Leng Ao over his shoulder without any hesitation. "Oh, wow, ah," the surrounding people exclaimed and stared blankly at Leng Ao who was lying on the ground. Leng Ao who was lying on the ground supported his waist with his hand and looked at Ning Shu in disbelief. Until now, he still hadn't reacted. Since he was young, he had always been supported by others. This was the first time he had encountered such treatment. Ling Xue also looked at Ning Shu in disbelief, then looked at Leng Ao who was lying on the ground. She quickly helped Leng Ao up. After being embarrassed in front of his sweetheart, Leng Ao hated Ning Shu to the bone. He was actually thrown over the shoulder by a girl in front of everyone. It was like putting his dignity on the ground and stepping on it. The surprised gazes of the surrounding people were like knives stabbing into Leng Ao's shame and resentment, making Lang Ao want to tear Ning Shu apart. Ning Shu's face was cold, and his heart was very stifled. Damn it, she almost sprained her waist. Sure enough, throwing a boy over her shoulder was much more difficult than throwing a girl over her shoulder. Are you looking for death? Lang Ao raised his fist and smashed it towards Ning Shu's face. He used all his strength in this punch. Ning Shu wouldn't let others hit him obediently. He dodged and stretched out his leg to kick Lang Ao's knee. It was a solid kick. Then, Lang Ao knelt on the ground in front of everyone. Ning Shu was really annoyed with Lang Ao. Taking advantage of the fact that he was kneeling on the opposite side, she kicked his butt again, making him fall flat on his face. Lang Ao was speechless. Who could tell him what was going on? Lang Ao's mind was in a mess. He wished he was invisible so that no one could see his embarrassment. He must make this crazy woman pay the price. He must pay the price. Ling Shui felt that this woman was really crazy. She was simply looking for death. It would be best if she was kicked out of a school as soon as possible. Ling Shui felt that this woman called Lin Jiejia could go and die. Once she was out of school, this woman could only wait for death. Lang Ao was helped up by someone. His expression was very ugly. The gaze he used to look at Ning Shu was very cold. Every word he said seemed to come from the gaps between his teeth. Bitch, you've successfully pissed me off. Ning Shu couldn't be bothered with him. He lifted up his three-legged table and didn't even look at him. He didn't even pay attention to his words. She had a lot of things to do. She didn't have time to care about this damn prince who lived in her own world. Lang Ao was so angry at Ning Shu's attitude that he almost jumped up. However, he also knew that he was at a disadvantage today. He raised his chin arrogantly and walked past Ning Shu, bringing a gust of cold wind that made people's hearts turn cold. Ning Shu knew that he had offended Lang Ao. However, since he had offended him, he didn't want to care at all. His attention was on Ling Shui. He didn't understand what Ling Shui was trying to do. The queen suddenly became a white lotus. What the hell was she doing? Ning Shu touched the gun at his waist and looked at Ling Shui who was sitting in front of him. In the following days, Ling Shui targeted Ning Shu more and more, making Ning Shu's days in school more and more difficult. Ling Shui thought that Ning Shu wouldn't be able to stay in school anymore. However, she didn't expect him to take root in school. He ate, drank, and slept in school. Ling Shui secretly cursed Ning Shu for being so thick-skinned. Fortunately, the spirit energy in her body was already abundant. Although it was abundant, it was too mottled. There were too many impurities. She had absorbed too many people's essence. Sometimes, when Ling Shui used spirit energy, she felt that it was very troublesome. Ling Shui didn't know how to purify the spirit energy and get rid of the impurities. However, she couldn't stop absorbing people's essence. The spirit energy in this world was too thin. It was so thin that it made people's balls hurt. Ling Shui was now very annoyed. How did humans make the world like this? Lang Ao only lost his dignity in Ning Shu's hands last time. He swore to get justice from Ning Shu. Then, a man like Lang Ao actually found trouble with Ning Shu every day and fought with Ning Shu every day. Ning Shu didn't hold back against the punching bag that came to his door. He trained his martial arts. In the beginning, Ning Shu couldn't take it. After all, she was a girl. It was very difficult for her to fight against Lang Ao who was almost 1.9 meters tall. After losing face in front of Ning Shu again and again, Lang Ao held back his anger and insisted on getting back his dignity. As a man, he was actually beaten up by a woman. Moreover, this woman was getting fiercer and fiercer. The entire Ace Academy was used to it. They were used to Lang Ao finding trouble with that inferior person every day. Then, Prince Lang would be beaten up by that inferior woman. Then, Prince Lang wouldn't admit defeat and went looking for trouble again the next day. Ning Shu didn't have the admiration and adoration of the original Lin Jiejia for Leng Ao. If he came looking for trouble again, Ning Shu wouldn't be polite at all. Ling Shui really didn't like Leng Ao looking for Ning Shu every day. She pulled back Leng Ao, who was angrily looking for Ning Shu, and said, "Just get someone to expel him. There are rumors in the school now that you two like each other." "Like each other? What's that?" Leng Ao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Ling Shui and said firmly, "I'm standing up for you and taking revenge for you. Expelling him is letting him off too easily." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.